So we're getting started. And again, if you were just arriving, I am here. I am here. But I've decided to take myself off screen. I've got beautiful people on the screen. You don't need me, right? It's sexy overload. We'll start up and we'll do introductions. So, topic one. On Saturday, the Justice for J6 rally happened with an extremely poor showing. The rally was going to protest the prosecution of those involved in the January 6 riots earlier this year. It was billed as a huge event that could be a repeat of the violence. But in the end, only about 100 protesters showed up, which were outnumbered by the media who covered the event. Is this a sign that the right has moved on from their support of Trump? Is he less important to the movement now that we are months away from him being in office? If so, does Trump's social media deplatforming have anything to do with that? Or has the right not changed at all and is instead switching tactics? Yeah, so they had this rally Saturday. It was supposed to be. I mean, I saw this coming. I've seen this happen a bunch of times before, right? Where they get like really hyped up, get themselves all in a tizzy, right? And like it falls flat into place. We've seen this for like the straight pride parade. Like this happened, right? They had like a ton of cops who showed up. Because they thought like, oh no, there's gonna be like trouble, right? But like no one fucking shows up. And there's like more counter protesters than actual protesters. So I saw this coming. But still, is this a sign of the times that this rally did not get the support that people thought it was going to? All right, we'll start with Captain A. Jones. What are your thoughts?
Yo, what's up? Yeah, you can follow me, Captain A Jones, Twitter, Twitch. Yeah, I do stuff. What are my thoughts on this? I mean, basically, what the fuck were they out there in the first place doing? But then again, what were they doing there on January 6th? So I guess that's a thing. I mean, in terms of why do I think it was a low attendance? I would love to say that it's because of social media and pressuring these people, making them look like absolute idiots over the last however many months it's been since January. I don't want to count. I would love to say that, but I think I'm being more reserved because I'm still traumatized from 2016. And I remember in 2016 going into it feeling like there's no fucking way that Trump's going to win. I remember he was up and they were projecting he was going to win, and I was still in denial on the day that it happened. So I don't know. I actually think I'm traumatized because when I see something like this, immediately my thought is kind of like, yeah, maybe that we've pressured them and hey, look, this is like a good victory for us. But then I guess the cynical part of me comes out and I start thinking, actually, this is the feeling. This is a feeling that I had. As a familiar feeling like we had victory before we actually counted our proverbial eggs.
Okay.
Anyway, that's what I think.
First, thank you for that. Fanatic, we can hear you typing. And to the rest of you, keep your introductions relatively short because we got a lot of people, so we gotta work our way through. So I'm yelling at Captain A. Jones. No, I'm not. Let's go to Problematic Pan.
Yeah, so I don't think that the low attendance at this rally is the result of the Republican Party losing favor in Donald Trump. The reason there was low attendance was because most right-wingers viewed this event as a honeypot where the CIA was going to try to entrap them. If we take a look at apparently across social media, all of the far-right groups like the Proud Boys and other far-right groups said, hey, this is a honeypot, don't show up. Donald Trump said, hey, don't show up. Donald Trump himself, a couple days before the event, said, hey, don't show up. So I don't think we can say that this is because of a lack of attendance. When everybody who, the rally was targeted towards, they were told not to show up. So that makes sense to me. I mean, if we take a look at the polls, Joe Biden and Trump are now like in a deadlock when it comes to who people would vote for in 2024. Trump has a lead, I think, actually, of like 51 to 49, but it's not statistically significant. I think the fact that we don't see Trump on social media might be helping him because we don't get to hear all of his horrible takes all the time. But I do think he's still very actively communicating with the right. Just because we don't see him on Twitter and we don't see him on Facebook doesn't mean the people he's trying to talk to don't see him. So I don't think that worked. I think Trump is still very strong in the Republican Party, and we should worry about that.
Thank you. Counterpoints.
Yeah, so I'll keep it brief. Problematic Pan, I agree with like 90% of what you said. I think this is going to be an interesting experiment in deplatforming, because basically if Donald Trump came back and won won next election season despite being platformed, then I think you'd have to rethink your tactics about how we have discourse as a nation. And then when it comes to this thing, I don't think we're out of the woods at all. Most polling that I've seen has said that like 55 to 60% of the Republican Party still supports Trump. And if they don't support Trump specifically, then they still support the America First agenda. I said that I was not too worried about Donald Trump himself, because while his rhetoric and goals might have been a little bit nefarious, I was more worried about a competent version of him. And I think that's on the horizon. So I'll leave it there for the general.
Jason.
Okay, so my take on this is pretty similar to what Pan and Counterpoint said. I am very concerned that the Trump regime is not done having a total and complete fix on our politics, especially on the Republican side. One thing I wanted to note is there's a lot happening at the state levels, especially in these swing states, and battleground states. Being from Arizona, we're seeing it right now. While there wasn't a huge showing at this rally in Washington, D.C., there is scheduled to be a rally here in Arizona when the release of the fraud results come out on Friday. And I guarantee you that will probably have more people than were at the D.C. rally. That said, I think they're absolutely trying to attack things on the state level where they were not able to compete and accomplish their goals on the federal. So we have a lot to look forward to, and I don't think Trump's going anywhere as far as the Republican Party goes. And I do think that there are a lot of people that are modeling themselves after what he's done that will eventually find their way into office on the state and city and municipal levels.
Okay. Top Dolphin.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, "Hey, is this like the result of like Trump being deplatformed?" But like, Trump hasn't been deplatformed. Sure, his like accounts have been deleted, from what Facebook and Twitter, but the man can go talk to a newspaper. The newspaper puts an article out. That article is on Facebook or Twitter with quotes from Donald Trump. People talk about him all the time on social media, so he hasn't been deplatformed. In fact, he literally told people not to show up to this rally, and people didn't show up. But if he told people to show up, they probably would have showed up. We can pretend like deleting his accounts like kind of like reduces his influence, but instead it's a little bit of the Republican Party losing favor with him, and a lot of it that he just like hasn't made many significant moves lately. That's about it.
Okay. Hans.
Yeah, I don't want to retread anything that anyone else has already said. Like the January 6th thing, it seems like a Republican conspiracism is sometimes self-defeating in terms of like public presentation, and that they're like, oh, this might be a false flag, does like not very many people showed up. I think you could also say that the energy isn't quite there as much. Again, regular people are kind of lazy and they don't follow politics like all the time. Even if someone still thought the election was stolen, it's pretty hard to maintain that same level of energy, especially given like the massive public crackdown on what happened, rightfully so, on January 6th in terms of the crackdown. The riot wasn't rightful, but like the crackdown was. And so I can completely understand why they're devoting their efforts to the state and local level, as Jason alluded to, specifically because a small dedicated group of people can absolutely dominate local politics in a way that we don't really understand. In the case, say, using like an online example for all of us terminally online people, like if a single streamer like Destiny can get, say, like 100 people to canvass for like a random mayoral candidate, like the entire zeitgeist and strategic planning of like the online political right can absolutely dominate like local mayoral, local like county races, local or like say state races in ways that we aren't quite like prepared for. And the only like solution that I would say is just that we have to out organize them. That means like people on the ground. That means us like organizing, whether you're a liberal, whether you're a leftist. If you don't want Republicans to literally control, the faculties of how we vote, right? I think there's some scary like legislation legislation happening right now that allows like places like Georgia to be able to overturn like certain like legal elections and say like they were like a fraudulent or whatever, then you have to make sure that you control the levers of power that determine whether the elections are legitimate or not. Because if we allow them to be completely like taken over by partisan Republicans, then I think we all understand like the damage that could cause. So fight on the local level. It's find the local level. It's diffused from Trump, even though he is still ludicrously popular and the like #1 candidate for the Republican Party. But in this specific case, I don't think this is a sign of the weakness of the right. This is just a sign of changing priorities and a diversity of tactics.
UB.
Yeah, I basically agree with everything Pan said. And Hans really. I think that right now it seems that if Trump were to go for the nomination, he'd have it. But there was a poll, I forget exactly where this was, but there was a poll that said that a substantial amount of Republicans actually think that he shouldn't run again. So that might mean that he's open to like if a challenger could come up and gain popularity, they might be able to sweep the nomination out from under him. But right now, that's looking like a long shot, just based on the figures we have on the national stage. So yeah, I think that his popularity isn't anywhere near the 80-90% it was right after the election, but he's still substantially like popular. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon without him. And I agree that with Pan that him not being on Twitter might actually be helping him because we're not seeing the crazy Trump tweets every day. So yeah, I don't think the low turnout is an indication of loss of support for Trump.
Fanatic.
Well, just to touch on this really briefly, I absolutely think that the banning of his Twitter account, even if it is like helping him in some ways, I think it was absolutely essential. I think that man is dangerous, and he demonstrated it. And I think January 6th is partially his fault, largely his fault, to be honest. I think this January 6th thing, this rally right here, is I think a sign of the failing Republican Party. I think their conspiracy nonsense and all the things that they've been getting involved in is finally starting to act against them, and they're cannibalizing themselves. Like they've been, they weren't even sure what's happening. Oh, this is a hoax, and everything is planned, and everything is corrupt against us, and all their conspiracy nonsense. So they couldn't even rally behind a freaking something like this. They've attempted time and time and time again to whitewash this thing that happened. But in reality, like we have camera footage. We've all seen with our own eyes. The video footage is out there. The heinous thing that actually happened on January 6th. And so I think consequently, a lot of those people are afraid to touch this thing. How do you get involved? How do you touch this and try to spin it into being something positive for your party? They tried getting so many speakers and so on and whatever, and nobody would come, nobody was down because they recognize this is a ticking time bomb. The arrests are already rolling out. Prosecutions are already rolling out, so they don't want to touch this, and I think reasonably so. They shouldn't want to touch it, and the original thing that happened is horrible, and I don't think anybody with a brain is going to sit here and allow this thing to be, some sort of way painted to be something pretty, and that's why I think that it failed. The Republican Party has some reckoning to do, or they have to face the consequences of their actions, and it's really crazy because Donald Trump is still the face. Right across the street from me right now, I have a neighbor with a Donald Trump 2024 flag flying out of his house. He's a cop. So it's really crazy. Like these things, he hasn't gone anywhere. He still has his reach. It's absolutely crazy to me that he hasn't though.
Yeah. All right. If only it was a slogan and we could encapsulate our feelings to that police officer. Any which way, LSP.
Scab. Scab is
Yes.
acceptable.
Okay, so on the Trump attendance thing, I don't think low attendance for the event is really indicative of anything. I think the low attendance was because the event didn't really serve like a direct identifiable purpose like the January 6th event. Trump's popularity, I don't think, is waning. He pretty much is the Republican Party now. I primarily agree with Hans, who I think has echoed more or less what others have. And so I'm sorry to say, this doesn't seem like there's much of a debate here.
Yeah, I think we can flesh into different parts. So, in particular, as to what Fanatic said about him being like the zeitgeist and like still the spirit of the Republican Party, and what Pan said, there was like some straw polls taken at the RNC, I think like in July or whatever it was, and in the field of Republican candidates without Trump, it was like clearly DeSantis with like 60+% of the vote. I linked this like in the Discord, but like when you put Trump in, it's like over 70% for Trump, and DeSantis is like at 22%. So like if this guy wants the nomination in 2024, unless something catastrophic happens or he dies in the next like 2 years, he's gonna get it. Like the Republican Party is his. Like I don't think if anyone wants to dispute that, I guess we could argue about that. But like does anyone like disagree with that statement?
No, I don't.
Oh.
I don't disagree with that statement. And that's kind of where I want to tell the people at home is like there were some people who were saying like we don't want Trump to run because they feel like he's a toxic brand, not because they don't support his agenda. So that's like something that I wanted to differentiate, because if you look at the polling, I think it's 55 to 60% of the Republican Party as a whole supports either Donald Trump or the America First movement, and the remaining 40% are like what you would call like rhinos or corporate Republicans or Republicans. That's kind of what we're talking about.
The GOP is censoring Connor yet again.
Ooh, they got. Oh, as someone who's also recently struggled with people telling me that they agree with me, but for optics reasons, what I said was bad. I completely understand. So like it seems like they're like whoever's going to win. If it's not Trump, I don't like as much as I appreciate the rhinos. I really don't. But like I think they're better than like the right wing populists or whatever the fuck you want to call them. But it doesn't seem like that's where the like energy of the party is, and the Republican Party is their base, I would say, is like a much more up for that flavor of populism than like Republican corporatism. I don't think like a Mitt Romney type has any real shot right now, because that's just not where the energy of the party is at. Like sorry, go ahead, Fanatic. Sorry, yeah.
I was going to say, I don't want it to be just about who's going to win the election. I want to talk about this freaking rally and how failed it was for the Republican Party. And I don't like us like kind of talking around as if it's just like, oh no, maybe they just they weren't sure about whatever. No, this is a direct failing. This was a rally that was in line with what their goals have been thus far. They have been trying to recharacterize this thing as something that was like more tranquil, and there were just some bad actors. They literally tried to blame it on Antifa, whatever. Like, no, like this was a freaking insurrection. That's exactly what the freak happened. And now you guys are all terrified because the chickens are, well, I don't know the phrase, coming home to roost, I believe.
Yep,
that's it. Hey. Yeah, I'm really bad with idioms. That's what's happening. And so it's like, I think Donald Trump, yes, he is a toxic brand. And I think we should have all recognized that by now. Well, I mean, all of us probably do. But the fact that the Republican Party does have a hard time distancing themselves from, he's really effective. He's convinced people to not paint him as the demon that he has been, that has been largely responsible for a lot of the fallout that we're having. That insurrection was just the tip of the iceberg. The way this coronavirus happened, that all got started because of him. The reason why there's so many anti-vaxxers regarding it are him. The people who were so staunch anti-mask were because of him. Like, we're not going to sit here and pretend as if that original January 6th thing didn't happen partially because of Trump as well. His rhetoric and him and his cabinet. So, like, ultimately, like this thing, it failed just like that. The original insurrection was a failure, and it's just Donald Trump, like, doing what Donald Trump does, making this country significantly more divided. Like, it's gross. Like, the fact that even his own party is like, yeah, we like his ideology, but he can't run, or we would prefer him not to, like, that says everything. The dude is a cancer, and it's like, I don't know, I just want us to make sure that we're very, very clear and concise about that.
I'm curious.
I really want to...
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm really, really curious. If we grant everything Fanatic says, what should Democratic response be to that? What should the Democrat strategy?
So there's two things we can encourage. I think we have to be very careful about just allowing someone who has all of the same policies and like aesthetic of Trump, who's just not Trump, saying like, oh, like DeSantis is a kinder, like more or like less potentially divisive, like a right-wing populist like flavor.
That's what's gonna happen.
I completely understand that's going to happen, and like that's fucking like terrifying. I've like maintained this since I've met him, and I've maintained this to this day that we should push and encourage the modern Republican Party to, at best, look like Connor here, and at worst, look like Mitt Romney types. People who are slowly being moved towards like gay marriage style stuff, who are always going to push for like regressive tax policy and that kind of stuff, but like are still like less actively like horrifically damaging to democracy in terms of divisiveness. I can say the difference between like I hate all of like virtually all Republican policy. I do think there's a difference like between like the power of rhetoric between like say a right wing populist using the megaphone of the White House versus like a Mitt Romney style type in terms of how much damage it can do.
I will remind you that Mitt Romney passed the child tax credit. So
I know, and that was specifically okay. Yeah.
the response you would get, Hans, the problem is that you tell a Republican they have to become a version of counterpoints. They're going to respond with that doesn't win us elections. Trump does.
Right,
Well, and
And they have a point.
I
I
think they
think
do have a
further
point.
though, I think further though, what we're missing is that the reason that Trump was popular was because he was appealing to a working class that felt disaffected and felt disconnected with politics and didn't feel like anybody was speaking for them. And unfortunately, that's where the Republican Party is at now. And I don't foresee it moving back to some kind of corporatist center or anything like that because these people, their voices are too loud and they're pushing the agenda too hard.
Yeah.
And you're going to have a lot of trouble with that. There's a lot of people that are going to push back on that right now.
Can
Yeah,
I?
and I
y-
think
I-
that
I-
the what created Trump in the first place and like the recipe or like the ingredients that were necessary to have a Trump are all still there, if not like we've got it doubled now to make a double. Like we're doubling the recipe is what it kind of feels like. And I guess like what I'm really afraid of is like, yes, Joe Biden pulled out the most votes ever, but didn't Donald Trump have the second most votes ever?
Yes.
That
Yep.
is
Exactly.
terrifying.
Exactly. And
That
that's
is
right at
terrifying.
the
And
crux
like,
of it.
I don't know. Like I said, I am fucking scarred. I am so scarred. Like
Well,
from 2016, and like bringing it back to the rally. Like I that's why I'm just like I want to believe that this is a sign of something, but then again,
It's
I
not.
also just really am wary of anything that
Can I-
shows that Trump could not be there.
Can I really briefly tell you how big of an uphill battle this is? I had somebody saying that investing in healthcare, education, and minority communities are left-wing talking points, and they're never going to work. Somebody said that to me today.
Well, sure. I wanted to push back on one thing. I'm not necessarily calling it push back, but I think a lot of you guys are ignoring something that I think is partially the reason why Trump won, and I think it's the left's way of engaging in politics. I think very often, like that feeling of like not being able to say your mind and like some of the more, I don't know, autocratic, whatever word you want to use, despotic, whatever. Like the
Like-
way people
Like
authoritarian. That's the word. I'm sorry.
Okay.
The authoritarian left is like really problematic, man. Like it seems like very often like opinions and ideas can't be shared with people on the left, and so then the people on the right they start feeling more and more ridiculous, and they start feeling more and more like no, we got to rally behind something to stop the left. Because like yeah, like the a lot of the leftist rhetoric is absolutely problematic. Very often, like the idiots on Twitter, their voices are too loud and they need to shut the hell up. Half of the time they're saying complete nonsense, and then as a result of that, it's like okay, now the right have something to glob onto. Anytime the right are attacking the left, they're never attacking moderate left people. They're attacking like super extreme leftists and like saying, see, this is what they want and this is what they believe. And in reality, most of the time it's a caricature.
So man, I can grant you a couple things. One, I completely agree with it. Like some of like the far left elements like online are absolutely ridiculous. I fought them like recently over the last like couple weeks on like like some of them wanting to like genocide white people, like woke ethno-state stuff. I've like fought them over like just today about like schools and like how anarchists want to abolish schools and like how that's fucking ridiculous from like any level of a policy standpoint. Like yeah, they're fucking nuts. Like I completely agree with you. And I would say in the broader left, I'm not sure how we combat that aside from just like stronger, strict messaging and like having like more in the same way that I want the right to look like counterpoints, I would prefer the left look like me. Not like racially, but like just like in terms of like my pragmatic like lefty style politics stuff. So I can like completely like jive with you on that. I just don't know where I'm not sure how we fix that, but I think we could. I guess like this would be like a point we could like maybe like a hedge over a fight about is how. But we're talking like say like the authoritarian left. Do we mean like specifically like a weird tankies and anarchists? Because like I can completely vibe with you there. But like after like witnessing like the horrors of like Trump like of like his rhetoric and like him using the bully pulpit the way that he did, I think we can agree that like him like getting knocked off Twitter is probably like really good for like the quote unquote like safety and stability of like America, at least like in terms of like the public space. So like
Sure.
so I think we can vibe with that. So I guess we have to like more adequately define what we consider to be like authoritarian left, because like I think right wingers wouldn't distinguish between like weird tankies online and then like say the left wings like tech companies banning Trump off of Twitter. And I think this like criticism is levied towards like even like moderate Dems, because like how many times we all heard like Biden be called a communist, That's really, really like common and really, really stupid. And I'm not quite sure how we fix that aside from like moderate Dems like showing people that they're not, because like Biden does that every single day, and then left wing people like just being realistic in terms of like what policies we're pushing like at this like point in time. I don't know how else we're supposed to fix this beyond like us just like self-policing and saying like, hey, like lefties on Twitter, you're all fucking stupid. Like we're gonna say like we're gonna try and like, you know, if we're gonna deplatform Nazis and like those kind of people, if like someone's advocating for like genocide of like, you know, like Americans or what have you, or that kind of stuff, or like ethnic cleansing of white people, I think we could probably say we should like deplatform those people as well. I think like that's the best way we can do this, but I'm not really sure how we fix this beyond that.
Sure, the right has their authoritarian sides too, but the left has their nonsense. Like it's really crazy to me that like at this point now we'll like literally label people who have like gotten literally every vaccine under the freaking sun besides this coronavirus vaccine, and like people on the left are like labeling them as anti-vaxxers, and it's like, what? I'm not anti-vaxxer.
I'm
I've
not.
done that on a regular basis. Like that, these kinds of things are happening where it just seems like very often the messaging is just so freaking skewed, and you can't really have an honest conversation. Like that just seems to be the norm nowadays.
Got you. I think like there's like two ways we can handle this. I think Destiny's done like a really good job specifically in how he talks to anti-vaxxers, where it's like instead of like adequately like going after them, and again like I'm guilty of this as well, where it's like you just ask them, what can I say to you, or what do I have to prove to you for you to get the vaccine? For people like say Sprouticus, like shout out to like to a conservative like, you know, lives his principles. He said, I'm waiting for the FDA like, you know, like safety approval, and as soon as it happened, like literally like that week, he got it. And then some people were still shitting on him for that. I think the best way to do this is just to encourage good behavior, and then try and treat the people who aren't like explicitly conspiracy peddlers and might just be like regular people like affected by this. Try and treat them in good faith. Say, what do I need to tell you? What do you need to hear for you to like understand this? And then if we treat them that way, maybe we'll have like a better effect. But like in general, I'm not really sure how else we fix that beyond just reward good behavior. And if people like are like weird, stubborn conspiracy theorists, or if they're like actual like the peddlers of these conspiracies, like I think you can come at you pretty hard. But like that,
Sure.
like, yeah.
And you don't have to peddle a conspiracy in order to you know what I mean? Like some of these people just have their own.
Does everyone agree with Fanatic and what he's saying, that it's the left's fault, and the rhetoric's fault for Trump? Okay.
Can I?
I mean, I partially agree.
We'll go to Pan. We'll go to Pan. Counterpoints and Jason.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. The Republican Party, to a large extent, is very reactive. So they get their fuel from reacting against things that they don't like. So the more things, I mean, one of the crazy things with I remember back in like 2015 with the BuzzFeed feminist videos. That shit is what pushed a lot of people towards the right. So I think when you're talking about a reactive movement, yes, they do get their fuel from the opposite side. It doesn't mean it's the left's fault, but they do have to acknowledge that is where the fuel on the right comes from. That's where the anger comes from. It comes from reacting against what they don't like.
So please, someone push back against this for me.
I think that the right
we'll go to counterpoints, Jason, and then Captain A. Jones. But like, and Hans. All right, great, great counterpoints.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I've been wagging my finger at leftists for the past 6 months on Twitch.tv, saying your rhetoric is dog shit. If you communicated your ideas better, then the right wing would take you more seriously. And I've talked to 2 right wing audiences right now, and I'm about to commit fucking seppuku. Okay, so like the truth is that it's hard to communicate with fucking people who don't like you and who don't like your rhetoric, don't like your ideas, and on top of that, they're reactionary, kind of like problematic Pan was saying. So I think that reactionary politics.
Yeah, I'm sorry, buddy. We're having trouble hearing you.
Because something that
The FBI's gotten them.
CIA is coming for us again.
GOP, I'm telling you.
Side is also bad.
Yeah, buddy, it's happening again.
I asked
the audio. Can you hear us at all?
Mike?
I mean, he's completely right. If you guys didn't hear that part, he said, "I agree with problematic Pan."
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I can pick up where Connor left off until the CIA like stops fucking with him. So like
I'll never stop.
Like in particular for this, if people don't like you, they will take like any chance to distance themselves or disagree with what you're saying, no matter like how much you're trying to like speak to them, how much you're trying to go. I think there's a solid conversation to be had about like who's gettable, and I don't think that it's just left-wing rhetoric. That produces these sort of people. I think a lot of like right-wing rhetoric and right-wing media apparatus is specifically about trying to find like the most fringe members of the left, or even like regular left-wing people, like clip them out of context and then have like a 5-day outrage thing about it. Whether it's like, you know, so like a jacked woman in a video game, right? Like from like The Last of Us 2 or some shit, or like anything about that, they will maul, they will like get really, really like fucking mad about. And so I don't know if those people are like so much to be like spoken to as much as just beaten, like in terms of like getting more people to vote for ideas in them. But I do think there's a solid chunk of people who are probably somewhat gettable. You just have to kind of speak to them in a way. And I think online is
get them.
Yeah, and online is really bad for this because a lot of us like are here. We are like extremely opinionated, extremely ideological in a way that a lot of regular people are not. So like online is probably honestly the worst space to change people's minds, because like anyone who comes online to talk about politics fucking knows what their politics is and probably doesn't want to be changed. They might be willing to have conversations, myself included. I'd probably put people like Connor, like this, pretty much everyone on this panel, I'd probably put in this category. But like most people, when they come online to talk about politics, it's not about learning. It's about saying my fucking team's right and this is why. And again, that's part of why we come on and talk, because like I don't think anyone on this panel comes on here thinking their ideas are dog shit or that they're wrong. We all think we're fucking killing it. So it's like we got like, I think that's something we have to like know. And talking to quote unquote normies is very different than talking to online like political people. And I'm not sure like what that specific like thing is, because I can get like a regular person to care more about maybe like better education or like healthcare like in like their specific area, or like maybe like an apartment building like or zoning and shit. But like a lot of like online like differences is like, oh, I used to be like, you know, a far right Nazi and now I'm like a council communist. And it's like, that's not what regular fucking people do, you know, like that's not what normal life is like. That's so I'm not sure what the like political like pipeline or online de-radicalization like does so much as like just consolidating power and hopefully used like as an online as like a leverage for like offline like actual activism. That's kind of where I'm at with this.
Let's go to Captain, Jason, and Doobie, excuse me.
Yeah, like I really just don't think that the left wing is responsible for the right wing's radical rhetoric. Like I really think that they would constantly have had something to complain about and make a big fucking fuss about the left wing doing, no matter what we did. Like it wouldn't matter if we tried on some mass scale as the left wing to like stop radicalizing. Like a Pan, I think you pointed out some videos on YouTube that radicalized a bunch of people. I saw that video too, and I wasn't convinced that that was the case. Like I wasn't convinced. I really wasn't. I felt like that was weak evidence to say that a series of BuzzFeed videos was because I saw a video that made that claim. So like I don't think that that's the case. And just to add a little bit more, like right wingers and left wingers, but wingers basically, they don't watch the other wing's content. You know what I mean? The only reason that you watch the other wing's content is to make the dunks. Exactly. That's what I'm fucking talking about, baby. You fucking know it. And like and so you're never gonna convince somebody who's already a right winger to be less right wing. And so like I think like when we talk about this, you know, we gotta talk about the people, yeah, like Hans was saying, the normies in the middle. Like I'm mainly a video game streamer, and every once in a while I do get people talking politics who are just like there to watch games because like I talk politics or whatever. I open my mouth and words come out. And like I think it's much easier to have a conversation with normies because they're not radicalized on either side. So they may be like, wait, isn't it expensive to do some left-wing program? But you can just kind of like counter and have an actual conversation. But if you can't do that, like especially on a panel space, oftentimes you're gonna have those people with, yeah, like again, like Hans was saying, with their fucking set ideas and opinions, and everyone thinks they're right, and they're trying to make themselves look better to the audience. They know that there's eyes watching, etc. Like, I don't know. I think of all that, and again, just looping it back, I don't think that the left wing is right.
So I'm going to push back on that a bit because I do think that there is some condescension that comes from the left quite a bit. And I do think that it damages our messaging. I think it damages our ability to make inroads because people already look at us like, oh, well, they just, they think I'm less than, they think I'm stupid, because some of the content that I've seen is condescending like that. I understand why they feel that way. Hell, I think the left cannibalizes itself most of the time. We're the most unforgiving people, like coalition to our own people, than anybody else could be. So like to think that the left isn't playing a role in what happens with how we end up with a Trump, that's ridiculous. We absolutely do play a role. Now, I would say we are a contributing factor, not the major factor. I think a lot of that comes from the push on the far right for, you know, again, these populist outrage messaging, and that's what they're really good at. Oh, you should be mad at the intellectual people, and we should develop this fear of intellectuals in our society because all they want to do is tell us how we're doing it all wrong. We're all just working class blue collar guys, and all these college people, they think they're so much better than us. And that's what they're selling people on. They're selling people on the actual bad messaging that the left is doing. And that's how they're winning. That's how they're getting ahead. Because they're taking that and they're turning it into a ball of rage, and they're saying, "Hey, have fun with this. Catch."
So yeah, I mean, in general, I actually agree with what you just said. Like, there's a lot of condescending left-wing content that's out there. I mean, there's a bunch of it on the right, but left-wingers, I guess, according to this, they don't. They're just
Good
less
at being really
averse to it.
condescending.
Yeah, you know what I mean? We just take it kind of just like flows, you know what I mean? So apparently we're more okay with condescension. And whatever that says about you, I'm gonna let you make up your mind about that. But like, so okay, cool. Like, I agree that we shouldn't be too radical. I'm like one of those people who, even though in chat I will say ACAB, I actually usually there's a big asterisk right next to that, and I go blah blah blah. This is why we shouldn't blah 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 blah. I don't know. But again, like, I don't I I don't know if that's really the reason. Like, would it really matter if the left wing was really good with their rhetoric?
Yes.
Yes, it
Oh,
absolutely
yeah.
would. And I want to be sure really quickly. I'm not saying that we're responsible for radicalizing other people. I'm saying that, and I don't know why I said we because I'm not a leftist.
What would you say is then? What would you say is responsible for radicalizing people?
Oh,
I would
can
say-
I answer this?
Sure.
No, Fanatic, go ahead. Buddy.
I do want to get Doobie in too at some point.
Man,
Okay, last thing really quickly. I would say the thing that radicalizes us typically is whenever we're not taught to think about things critically. And the way that we talk about things, think about things critically is when we're challenged by the opposing side. But you can't think about something critically if the other side, as opposed to actually challenging you or engaging you, instead just labels you as some sort of demon or whatever, and then just stops talking to you altogether and decides like, you're not worthy of talking to. And then at that point, you're not actually engaging with the idea, right? Because all you just know is I'm a demon if I think otherwise. So then you go around your circle, which clearly demonizes the other side. So now you have these left people that think critical race theory. I mean, these right people that think critical race theory is anti-racism. And so now we can't even have a conversation on critical race theory. And you have like some of these leftists who will just like label every right person as an alt-right or a white nationalist, and just like or a racist. And it's just like, wait, no. Sometimes there is nuance to these takes, but we don't do it. That the critical thinking is supposed to come from interaction with the opposing side, which then causes you to say, okay, I guess that's a good pushback against what I believed. But we can't do that. We never do, and that's where the problem.
Let's go to Doobie, and then we'll go to Counterpoints and Top Dolphin. And am I missing anyone? All right, Captain A. Johnson.
Fanatic actually said everything, well, almost everything I was going to say. I think that I think someone said earlier that you can't convince someone who's already a lefty or already to change their mind, right? That's batshit crazy to me. Of course you can, right? Yeah, fuck you, Captain Newsom.
You fucking frog.
But right,
go.
that takes work, right? And a lot of times people just don't want to do the fucking work, right? They'd rather throw a label on someone like Hillary Clinton did with Donald Trump and his supporters, calling them all deplorables, right? Then you have people. Even today, I was having a conversation with somebody on your server, actually, Prime. He said, "Oh, the Republican Party's platform is to perpetuate racism and to oppress minorities and yada yada yada." Right. So anybody who votes for that platform, give them the best cases of racist. Right. So all Republicans are racist now. Right. This is a kind of like a demonization that happens on both sides, right? For sure. But when this happens, it's fucking toxic to like progress, right? To people actually coming together, understand that there are just like philosophical differences. The people, just because someone disagrees with you doesn't mean they're a fucking monster, right? Doesn't mean that they hate you. Doesn't mean they want to kill everybody, right? You can have these differences and hash them out in polite conversation. But a lot of times what the left does, and the right does this too, by the way, but given that we're talking about the left, is they just shut down the conversation. They don't want to have it, and in spaces where they have influence or control, they will make it. They will ban the conversation entirely. Right. So I'm going to bring up something that happened. I found out this happened just before the panel started, actually. Lauren Southern was banned from Twitch, like temporarily banned from Twitch, because she was invited to a panel where they were discussing transgenderism and whether or not it was a mental illness. And because she had that in her stream title, she was banned from Twitch for like a week or some shit. Right. So we got to understand that this is like a real conversation that needs to happen. You can't just say, hey, you can't have the conversation. The conversation needs to happen, and it needs to be public, and people need to be able to express these shitty ideas, and then we can walk people through them and maybe get some people to change their mind. Right now, not everybody just jumped onto the transgender hype train like right at the start. Some people are still on the ground with their ticket, and they're not sure they want to get on the train yet. And this is the case for like tons of issues. If you just shut down the conversation, you don't allow people to evolve to the correct position.
Does this include every conversation, Doobie? Like if somebody held a stream that was like, "Are Black people descendants of, or are Black people apes?" or something like that, like you would expect the media site to keep this
Personally,
up?
I'd be totally okay with it, because I think
What?
that I think the idea is indefensible, and I'd want someone who would hold a conversation like that and support that idea to look like a fucking idiot, embarrass, and for people to see that publicly. I think that's totally fine.
I think you're giving people way more credit for that.
I think you give yourself way too much credit if you don't think that people can think about this shit in a critical way. They do.
No, people
right?
can. They
I know that if you watch the debate and you saw this dude who's trying to defend the idea that Black people are like animals or something, get totally fucked, be humiliated, you come away thinking, oh God, that guy's a fucking idiot. You're not special. Other people think that way too.
But we thought the same about race realism like only a few years ago, and then we had an entire portion of YouTube dedicated to that very topic. Like, I don't think any topic is invincible just on its face.
Wait, but I think
better
that's
than it was.
Sure, 100%. And I was going to say really quickly, I think that the point that these ideas are, like, the only reason why people wouldn't actually want to engage in these topics is if you feel like in some sort of way you're going to arm your opponent. In reality, you shouldn't, because these are the dumbest topics of all time. There's a reason why Steven Crowder and, I'm not even going to say this loser's name, but that dude who just made that YouTube video about me, there's a reason why these people don't want to engage in conversation, because they recognize that, like, in an actual conversation, more often than not, they're going to end up looking really, really, really dumb. Like there's a reason Steven Crowder ran from Sam Leader in that situation, right? Yep. They avoid debates. They will go to a college campus. They will talk in their whatever. They'll talk amongst themselves, but they know these ideas don't actually stand up to reasoning. And I think it's the same thing for race realism, even more so. I guess if they wanted to say I was part horse, they could, but ultimately, these ideas don't stand up.
I got it.
So I think this is like a two-part thing, like for Fnatic and Doobie. On a basic level, I completely agree with you. I think that goes into preparation, responsible platforming. It's like do I think Lauren Southern should be debated by like every lefty under the sun? Absolutely not. Do I think someone say Fnatic, who's debated her like systemic racism twice, does a pretty fucking good job, like with Destiny and Roseburst? Absolutely. I think how you beat these people is like preparedness and like preparation for the topics. But a lot of these topics have more stuff to have ready and studies to read than most lefties are prepared for. So it's almost like I almost prefer like a quote unquote like strike team of like actual good debaters who are willing to put the time and effort in to research a topic to have these conversations. Because otherwise, I have seen like people lose like race realist debates because like the race realist people like bring up the fucking whatever like the IQ shit and all those sorts of weird stuff, and lefties are just like, well, like I can't believe you would actually say that, like da 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 da, and like it looks really really fucking bad. So it's like I think like the meme is just like do it well, but again that's more difficult than like I would say most of us.
For sure. Really quickly, please let me just put in one thing really quick. I'm sorry, it really should be really brief, dude. I used to be a big fan of Vosh. Vosh had a conversation with the race realist. The race realist brought up all these things about like IQ and things like that, and like I have a lot of information about that, specifically from the state of California, because like California bans IQ testing for black people because their IQ test was so culturally relativistic that all black people were basically like scoring extremely low, and they were using that as an excuse to just force black people into like special ed. But cultural relativity, obviously in an IQ test, is going to be really problematic. They've since come up with other tests that are not like that, but to date, by the way, still 2021, they still don't IQ test black children, not for like assessment of like where they're going to be in school and stuff like that. So I wasn't IQ tested in in school. I had to wait until later to be able to have that done. My nephew, he couldn't be IQ tested, and they were trying to label him as mentally retarded, even though he's autistic, so that they could like literally limit his education. I wanted to provide that information to Vosh, but Vosh is the kind of person that believes that he has all the authority to talk about black issues that he has no information about whatsoever, not actually have any of the insight, and it still says he's unwilling to engage in conversation with people that want to like whatever. He only wants to talk to people on people on the opposite side because he feels that he'll come to the correct conclusion and he can do a good enough job. So it's literally in his like questionnaire about how you can talk to him. So he automatically, if you're in the middle or whatever, then you're automatically like you can't talk to him in these kind of conversation. So he feels very comfortable talking about black issues while not literally being willing to consult with any black people about the actual topics. And I don't even think he believes in any of the actual topics. He's just a grifter. So yeah, I think yes, preparedness is really important. But Vosh was, I would imagine most leftists would probably say that Vosh is among the best of them. And he's someone I absolutely abhor him talking about black issues in any way. He talked to Charlie Kirk, and all he did was just like make concession after concession after concession, like just trying to like win over some of Charlie Kirk's audience. It's disgusting. Yeah, Vosh can't talk about it either. I don't know who really I feel comfortable really to discuss black issues in that sense. I think leftists maybe shouldn't be.
Two things. One, like overall, I think Vosh does like a pretty good job of like debating right wing people. I think like he like as someone like who's like a huge fan of him, like semi-stan, like he's the reason I started streaming. It's like I can completely understand why someone wouldn't want to engage, like say with other lefties or like other people, where it's like it's not so much I think he very much believes in like punching like exclusively right and like fighting conservatives, and also it's not good content. Like having like a good conversation with a lefty or so between like a lefty and like a left-leaning liberal, it just doesn't like get the same sort of content. Like if you want to like talk about like the content problems of like capitalism in YouTube, I'm completely down with that. But like I could show you like literal metrics where it's like I like debates like versus like conversations. Debates always like are spicier, always get more stuff. I think I'm not sure how we like fix that, but I can definitely agree with you that like the ways that like lefties or like deal with like race stuff, yeah, like we like all handle like stand to be more educated, yeah, like people like Rose Wrist who like does all the fucking work, all this like fucking studies and stuff, yeah, we get more of us could be like him. Like I'm always in favor of like evidence-based
I gotta move on.
Like,
I want to get counter, because go back to this counter Dolphin Captain, right?
I'm actually
you ever considered just being better at technology?
Yeah, I had to pull the plug on him again.
Yeah.
Have you tried turning it off and then back on again?
Oh boy.
I mean, he's got such good lighting and microphone.
Yeah.
It's such a waste.
Have you tried refreshing your
You do good freeze frames like right now. Try to get okay. Well, he'll be back soon. Let's go to Top Dolphin and then Captain Jones. And then what?
Yeah, something I wanted to say is like I think. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Something I wanted to say is like I kind of agree with this idea that like. Well, first I just want to propose the idea. I don't know if like Twitch is like necessarily the best place to have all of these conversations. And it's just like part of the nature of the conversations that we have here. If you want to do well, if you want to be big, like it's way more effective to like virtue signal and like yell and not listen to the other side and not have good arguments and just like create good content. That's completely separate from the idea of like actually exchanging of ideas, because like an actual exchanging of ideas tends to be pretty boring. I think Hans was kind of touching on that. But also, I kind of want to push back that like preparedness is necessarily the most important thing. While I think it's very important that like you should always try to be as prepared as possible, I think just starting conversations in genuine good faith is a lot more important. That's something that doesn't happen. A really good example was like I think it was like Lauren Southern and the Surfs, where like the Surfs did not approach that conversation in good faith, and Lauren Southern came away looking like a decent human being, and way less radical than she actually is. It's not even that people aren't prepared necessarily, but it's that like a lot of times like both sides do this too. They go to the table of the conversation not with the goal of actually having conversation, but with the goal of getting an own on the other side, or going and showing how the other side is stupid. And so they start the conversation with like someone brings up a point and they're like, that's stupid, rather than actually like processing the point, like taking it in and like trying to rebuttal it with actual like facts and data.
So like Top Dolphin, like I understand like the general thing. I think there's like two different categories of people than which you deal with. It's like content creators versus like actual people. Like if I have a call in and they're curious about a topic, I will be a lot nicer. I will be a lot more charitable. I'll be a lot more like slow in my explanation because I want to get through to them. And they don't have like a financial incentive to maintain their position. But literally every streamer, every person, like every like big creator, every person who makes money off this sort of stuff, we have a financial incentive to look good at debating. And a lot of times, and from the optics side, that involves not backing down. Like everyone has different techniques for this. Like you could like Destiny has a technique for this versus Vosh has a technique for this. Like every single person has their way of like admitting they're wrong or like skirting around that point or agreeing with somebody or like changing their position without making it look like a concession. It's literally the optics thing. And so like if I don't think like the serfs going into that conversation in quote unquote good faith would have made like that conversation better. I think that was just because like the failures of him in terms of like preparation, the failure of him in rhetoric, and then the failure of his partner in terms of like not being like literally insane in terms of conspiracies and saying that like Catholic priests like burned down their churches by accident at like an astonishingly high rate. Like literally like if you want to say like there's multiple components of like debating people, but if you're debating another content creator, like if I'm going to like say like debate like Vosh or Demon Mama about something, like I'm going into there focusing, make sure I have my sources right and making sure that my rhetoric is like relatively effective. If I'm having a conversation, I can lose the rhetoric aspect because I'm trying to have a good faith. Like I've had like non-rhetoric, like I've had conversations as opposed to debates. And at that point, I just care about being right, and that means I bite a lot of bullets that make me look like fucking unhinged. And that's what happened in my like last tax debate, where like I look kind of unhinged like to some people because I'm just saying like this is my actual position and this is like the end goal of like what I want to do, and that's raise taxes on virtually everybody. But like when you're fighting somebody who has like every incentive to be uncharitable to you, because again we literally do, because it's about winning for like for the sake of like online debate culture, like you can't treat them the same way that you would treat a rando or the way you would treat a normie. It's just not the same. And if you do, you'll get fucking steamrolled.
I
Yeah,
agree.
but like
What
I think
let's
we're
get back to
coming
something
from in the
though.
first place, right? Is like Doobie said that like we should be able to have like conversations about whatever. Like if someone wants to go call black people animals or something like that. And what I'm saying is that like necessarily if we're like rhetoric based conversations aren't like the right vehicle for this. And so like maybe it's important that we don't have every single conversation like on Twitch with content creators and stuff like that, because the goal of the conversations is bad. Also, I want to push back a little bit on the idea that like like engaging the argument in good faith in that Lauren Southern debate wouldn't have helped. 90% of that was Lance not even listening to what Lauren and her partner were saying, right? And his, like I said, Lance's partner putting out like lots of conspiracy theories about Catholic priests and stuff. But like it's not, it wasn't even that like he couldn't address the points. It's that he didn't even try to. He talked past her the entire time. And you can chalk that up to preparedness, but I say it's more of like a lack of like engaging that thing in that conversation in good faith.
So let's
I
get
would like to
let's
start
go
with
to
one thing.
let's
Okay.
okay.
Really, I swear it's less than 20 seconds. I think the idea, like the response to everything that I said was basically about like, well, yeah, you know, as a content creator, you know, you have to worry, really make sure that like, you know, because you get less views whenever you're having these other conversations. And I think that's part of the disgusting part. If you start valuing your content that you're creating as opposed to the argument that you're having, which is about the dehumanization of another person, then that inherently makes you a pretty evil freaking person. And I think that's disgusting. The fact that like if you're not willing to do the work to make sure that you're giving a proper representation of the people so that the other person isn't sliding in subtle dehumanizing arguments that you're literally walking past in order to make sure that you're creating good content, yeah, you can actually suck my dick.
Let's go to Captain.
Not you.
It's way more.
Let's go
than
to
20
Captain, and then Jason.
So yeah, I kind of want to tie everything all together with a nice bow. So like going way back in the conversation, talking about how the left labels people as like racist or like transphobes or homophobic or whatever, kind of to or in a way, what that does, not in a way, what that does effectively is it shuts down the argument. Um, I actually agree. Like this is a horrible tactic. I try not to do it myself. Like I really what I like to do when I'm debating somebody of the exact opposite kind of like a belief as I like to be really calm and try to like be really calm. I know. Have you seen me? I try to essentially just get them to say it for me. I don't want to say they're racist. You know, I just want to ask questions, not leading questions. You know, I just want to ask questions, or I try to talk with the audience, but like ultimately, and so I agree that that's a bad thing. Ultimately, I think that going forward in like debate format, we need to like marginalize the right wing radical ideas that we all fucking hate out of existence. But we need to do it, in the correct way. And going back again, way back in the conversation, this will tell you that I made notes. I agree with Hans because he said like we need a sniper squad for debates. Like I totally agree with that. We like and agree overall with like the critique of the serfs going into the Lawrence Southern debate. That was totally unprepared, and it made somebody who we probably all think, maybe with the exception of the frog, all think should be like, maybe a less platformed, more platformable, and makes them look better. And finally, to like wrap it all back up into what the conversation morphed into, like I think that there is a way to make good content, i.e., yelling at each other and all the shenanigans that makes a great panel a great panel. Like, let's just all admit it too. Those are the best panels. When you have a conversation that leads to like solutions and shit, often that's not the funnest shit to watch. It's just not. I am gonna admit that fully. I am all about like the fucking blood sports. I fucking love it. You know what I'm saying?
You're
But there's a
fucking
way.
insane. Everything you're saying right now is fucking ridiculous.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is fucking
Exactly,
bullshit.
baby.
You
That's
can
what
have
I'm
a fucking
talking
conversation.
about. That is what I'm talking about. And so, but I just think that there's a way to do all of that. Get your ideas out there in an entertaining, engaging, and fun way. And that's on you as a content creator.
Let me like clarify something. When I say that like Twitch might not be the right place, or like the internet might not be a place for certain conversations, right? I'm not saying that like those like rhetoric based conversations are just bad, right? I'm saying that if you want to like yell and scream and get nowhere and like make your side or the other side look very bad when you're talking to lefties online about what flavor of socialism you like, this has no bearing on the real world, and like it's probably okay. But like if the conversation is like, are black people human, or are they like equivalent to animals, like maybe that type of conversation just shouldn't be in a place where you're just trying to dunk on the other side.
Let's go to Jason.
And I kind of want to get back to something here. We veered way off into this conversation about like Twitch politics and how Twitch content creators don't have any impact on what really happens with people. And the fact of the matter is, oftentimes it doesn't. But you know what does, and what has worked for me with people, is talking to them about the issues that they face and not using political sloganeering, not even referring to political parties. I have a friend of mine that for the longest time was very far right. I started talking to him about policies, about why it would be important to have single payer healthcare, why it would be important to improve working conditions for working Americans, things like that. I approached it from the avenue of, hey, here's an idea, this could help you. And see, by taking the politicization out of it and by discussing the policies on their face, a lot of times you'll win normies over that way. And that's the conversations that we can have where we can push and make those changes and prevent, say, another Trump from coming into office. The cult of personalities are never going to work. It just doesn't. If you try to attack the cult of personalities, those people are going to grind their heels in harder. If you appease to situations that they're dealing with in their everyday life and you can address it that way, you're going to make some changes with people. But yeah, don't ever think that you're going to change hearts and minds by doing Twitch debates. It's fun. It's great. It's entertaining. And maybe it gives, some people
That's
that
bullshit,
like
actually.
you.
Yeah, actually, I would like to. Well, unless you want to go, Dewey.
Well, I don't know of any numbers on this, any studies like what that have been done on this, right? But I mean, anecdotally, I know of many people who have watched Twitch debates, watched Destiny debate, Race Realist, or the anti-SJW lords of YouTube or whatever, right? Over the last 4 years or whatever the fuck. And they come out of those conversations saying, oh God, maybe Sargon's a fucking idiot. Oh, hey, that guy that I've been watching all his content, he couldn't defend this position that he's been regurgitating to me for a year, so maybe he's a fucking idiot. Right? This happens all the time. I don't think that this just can't happen.
Tiny subset
How do you
of our
know?
culture. Like, everybody under the sun isn't on Twitch. There's a lot of people that
Yeah,
are.
but okay, but what do those other people watch? They watch YouTube. They watch a lot of people get their news from YouTube these days, or from Facebook, where these conversations are also taking place. If they're not if they're watching like the mainstream media, they're watching these debates happening on Fox or CNN, where they have like a lefty and a sort of right winger come on and they'll debate about some stupid topic. It's all the same shit, right? It's all just rhetoric, right? Whether it's happening on CNN or on Twitch.
Yeah, so actually, that's kind of almost what I wanted to say. Like in terms of Twitch political streamers and what we can do, or I personally believe like when it comes to big issues, and like when we're talking like domestic policy, that's big shit. I believe that individuals in general have very little impact, but then it's kind of like that old saying that I actually have no fucking idea what the old saying is, but it's like you put all the sticks together. And then but the one stick on its own, right? You break that shit, easy to break. 2 sticks, break that shit easy. But a bunch of sticks.
It's like an Iroquois proverb.
There you go. Like a bunch of sticks, and all of a sudden you're actually making a difference.
It was arrows, but yeah.
Yeah, it was arrows.
Okay, well.
So, but really quickly, I think just kind of really hit on the point. I think that the debates that you see on Twitch or on YouTube, all these debate pros, they're actually, there's a lot of rhetoric involved, but they actually reference studies, and they're very long form sometimes, like an hour, 2 hours fucking long. This is much deeper information than you're going to get on CNN in the 10-minute segment that they have on a topic, right? So I think it's actually better if people were to watch the content on Twitch or on YouTube or whatever the fuck, but not just the content, right? But actually the debates that happen. I think that just watching a YouTuber regurgitate his ideas at you for a year is a really bad idea. You really should be looking for when his ideas clash against other ideas, right? For when this person's like Sargon, right? His debates with Vosh, his first debate with Vosh, he did a really good job because Vosh just went in really hard and ended up looking like a dumbass. But his second debate, Sargon came out of that looking really stupid, and now he won't debate anybody anymore. Right? There's a reason for that. They don't want to look stupid because it hurts their audience. It makes their audience not look to them as authorities anymore.
Yeah, and like I don't know. It just reminds me, like, to anybody out there who's like a small content creator, you know what I mean? Like my friend told me this one time, and I still remember it. I think it's fucking hilarious. Like he's like, oh, so I tell him about like that I stream and I have like a few hundred followers, you know what I mean? And I just enjoy doing it, whatever. It's this thing that I do. And he's like, oh, so you're like a social influencer. And I fucking laugh because I'm like, I'm a social influencer. That's hilarious, dude. Like I said, I have a few hundred followers. Let's not overblow what the fuck's going on here. And he's like, no, dude, that's a few hundred followers more than me. The only people who follow me on Twitter, my friends. I have 5 followers. So it's like, I mean, we all play our part, and I think like that's why it's important to think about this kind of shit, especially if you're interested in it. Like I think all of us are naturally inclined to be interested in politics, and that's why we're all here. But like
sure, but if you're going to engage in this kind of thing and you are a social influencer, then it probably is in your best interest, and I guess everyone's best interest, to make sure that your arguments are as solid as possible. So then the idea of like just kind of closing your ear to people that you would be actually arguing in defense of, I think is pretty indefensible.
Oh,
yeah, can I just say really quickly, just in that spirit, really quickly in that spirit, Fanatic, I actually watched like a 2-hour debate that you were involved in with Lauren Southern and Actual Justice Warrior, and I think Destiny was there too. And I think you did a really fucking good job. Like Actual Justice Warrior is someone that I consider like a very, very strong right-wing debater. Just from what I've seen in his debates with other people, he's very like knowledgeable, and he just like pulls studies out of his ass out of nowhere, right? And I think he did a really good job preparing for that debate. So I just wanted to give you props for that.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Doobie.
Yeah, I mean, and I definitely agree that people need to be 100% prepared to go into a debate, especially if it's against a right winger who you're either platforming or being platformed by or whatever. Like I definitely agree with that, because
we're all saying. I'm just saying,
when we lose,
that the democratic solution is for us to have Twitch debates.
Exactly, because when we lose
and
debates,
we can't do anything else.
Yeah, no. It shouldn't just be Twitch debates. Like Twitter debates too, though. And not just Twitch debates and Twitter debates. Like, people need to be making like long form videos where they're kind of breaking down a lot of this stuff, right? Like, because like a lot of Steven Crowder stuff, it's not even about like it's not a debate video. It's just a monologue where he's just talking about and framing something in a very dishonest way, literally every time. He's disgusting. But that's what he's doing, right? Like that. Finding some way of like disseminating information, but being willing to engage when that information is pushed back against, instead of just instantly labeling somebody as a transphobe. We saw what happened in that WeSpa situation where Antifa was literally going and attacking and harassing people for saying that they made up a hoax about a freaking trans person like disrobing pre-op and in front of like children. And it's like, wait a minute, like if you're gonna call these people transphobe, and she's like, wait, I don't hate anyone, like what? And it's like, okay, there's nuance to some of these arguments. You can't just instantly label someone and think you're winning anything and then go and physically harass someone. They were literally physically pushing this older woman because she was like pushing back against this thing that later on we all found out was true. I think there's limits, man.
One thing that I've noticed is a good way is asking the people you're talking to, instead of directly calling them racist, ask them, do you see how this could be perceived as racism? Because I've noticed that people are much more willing to concede that, and I think it gets them to be more self-reflective. Yeah. I mean, just an little one-off, but
I agree with that.
So yeah, that's exactly what I was saying about like good debate tactics. You know, we need to be going into the shit like without so much emotion as well. Like so many people, no offense, Hans, go into their debates a little emotional. I'm just talking about your last one. I'm just kidding, dude. But like,
I care about taxes. Okay?
you care.
Big fucking deal.
You care so much. You hurt yourself. Like I'm sitting there agreeing with you, going, "Yikes, dude! I'm not defending your ass on Twitter. Fuck that."
Oh no. I'll remember this, Captain. But keep going.
Yeah, no, fuck shit. Like I'm just saying, like. You know, I totally agree.
So hold on, I want to like get back because we like went really far straight because like we went after Bosch apparently, and now we're just stuck on like Twitter debates. Like,
don't lob me in with that shit, Prime. I was not
sure, but like talking about like how leftist rhetoric has influenced the right. Like my problems with problematic Pan, and what he had said previously, like that, I thought that was ridiculous. I mean, like the hatred, and someone else said this previously, the hatred comes from the right, like that hatred, like anything can set a person off, right, who has hate and bigotry in their heart, and to say, well, it's these videos like BuzzFeed videos or whatever, right? I think that's a problem. I think that lets them.
I'm not saying that they're responsible for right wings. I'm saying that it is a cause of it. Right, that obviously, yes, some of these people are hateful people, and they will find stuff, to be hateful about. But it is undeniable that the right gets their fuel and their energy as reactionaries against things that they don't like. Now, sometimes that can be, a lot of times, in history, we've seen that be against groups of people and, just outward racism. But in recent times, it's mostly been against these what they consider radical left-wing ideas. That's their opposition to that is what defines them. So I don't think it's ridiculous to say that even if it's not the left's fault, that what fuels the right is this extreme stuff coming from the left.
Doobie, I'll let Doobie respond. Also, just so you know, our friend Counterpoints had a tech issue, and hopefully he'll be back next week. But yeah, so he's gone for now.
We love you, Connor.
Counterpoints had a tech issue? No way, dude. There's no fucking way.
He's left me alone on a panel full of leftists.
Doobie.
See, look at God. Now I'm in the panel. Now see even 9 people. See that?
Now, I guess. Okay. So I think Prem, the way that you frame that is really problematic. I actually think that calling this like hatred, right? So we'll use the example Fanatic brought up. People that were upset, a bunch of them were upset that a trans pre-op person was out of the spa, apparently without the towel on, in front of children. A lot of women said this happened. They were really upset about it at the spa. So labeling that as like hatred for trans people, I think it's a problem because it's more complicated than this. Some people just aren't comfortable with little girls singing penises, right? So you can say that, well, this is a trans person and they have just as much right to be naked there as any woman. Sure, that's a perspective, but it's not. But them not being on that side yet, right? Being as evolved as you yet doesn't make them hateful. It doesn't make them bigoted. It just means that this is a complicated fucking issue, and you're going to have people at different stages of evolution on it, right? And I think you got to give people time to get there. You can't just call them hateful or bigots for not being
okay. So I gotta push back on all this. One, I don't know what this incident is, so I'm not willing to sign on that anything happened, right? Fanatic, I'm sure you have a source. Love to see it, right? On whatever this incident is involving some sort of trans individual, right? But even as the case, like, okay, all right, someone overreacted in a certain situation, right? Like, again, I'm still not willing to give an inch on that yet. I'd have to look at that case and actually, like, digest that. But still, like, yeah, like, people say dumb shit online, right? And they overreact and they do it for clouts and all the things that we've said here before. That doesn't mean that the right isn't hateful. That doesn't mean that, like it can be, like, the idea of calling these people racist, right, or sexist or bigoted, right, that should be done only when it's warranted, but so often it's warranted. We have a trillion examples of this. You all know this. We have this, right? And again, I'm not labeling them all that, because that would be wrong, absolutely wrong. But what the right is based on and what is marketed towards them by their politicians, right? That's clear. Like the Southern strategy, right? That wasn't a leftist idea, right? The Southern strategy was to get that whole reactionary outcome because the civil rights movement was a thing, right? Like, because that evoked hatred from them. So no, it's actually very accurate to call people who are hateful, and not all the right is hateful, I'll make that very clear, but to call them fucking racists and fucking bigots. Like, I don't see how our rhetoric is responsible for their actions.
Well, hold on, because you're making a general statement about what we can do in the case in which people are hateful or when they're actually bigots. And when you have good evidence to show that, then I think all of us here would agree that it's fine. Call a freaking spade a spade. But I think the idea that we don't mischaracterize people, like, I'm sorry, I keep saying we. The idea that the left doesn't mischaracterize people when they're inappropriately, very often, like in non-hateful situations, I think that's true. There are plenty of people who will be called a racist for having a different take in situations where they're not. It's not that they hate black people or think less of black people, but they just, are uninformed about a given topic. Like, these things happen. I linked you the Wee Spa situation. Something did happen, and originally the left had that same skeptical position of, I don't know anything actually happened. The Wee Spa came out and said that they didn't have any trans people using the spa on that day, and blah 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 blah, until eventually, like, actual police charges were filed and they identified the individual who did it, meaning that these women weren't lying and making things up. And instead, now we had a whole bunch of, like, a bevy of people gaslighting them and basically implying that they were, like, making things up in order to be hateful, which somewhat justified all of the hate that they were getting and the actual physical assault that was happening. 2 people died in this incident. So, like, yeah, these are things that actually happen. This is not, like, unheard of. How often do you immediately hear the second someone says anything that's like whatever, it's like, oh, you're a climate denier. Oh, you're a homophobe. You've seen it happen to me on a regular basis. Oh, you're a transphobe. Oh, you're a bigot. It's just, they throw out a label. They're not actually engaging you in a conversation. They don't know your actual take. They just jump to something so that they can label it and get to their virtue signaling. And then all that does is make people say, oh, Twitter's a cesspool. I don't want to talk on Twitter anymore. I'm just going to only talk in my own circle. I'm just going to go to whatever the freaking, that social media thing that got taken down, the Republican one. They're just going to sit in those circles. Right. Like, that's all they're going to do. They're not going to actually go to your platform anymore. They're not going to engage. There's a reason why all of these platforms are hyper left-leaning, because you can't share right-leaning opinions. One person got canceled for literally saying that they believed that there were only 2 genders. Instantly deplatformed. It's crazy. There's a conversation to be had.
So
tell them they're wrong.
Wait,
explain it.
Wait. So let me like throw a small branch to Fanatic and then push back. So I think there is a difference in the type of people in terms of how you respond. Again, if it's a regular person who's just like not up to speed on like the latest social thing, like they're still getting used like to like gay marriage stuff, and like they've never like actually met like an IRL trans person before because they live like in the center of like bumfuck nowhere, and they don't like live in any big cities, and they've never like seen like a black or Asian person before. Like all they know is like they're tiny white, like super straight, like and I say super like I just mean like very straight, like you know, Midwest like bumfuck like farm town, like where I grew up, right? Like I can understand that, but I think it's very easy to like immediately condemn them, right? Because a lot of us don't want to do like that kind of work, and I understand because that's very frustrating. I understand like a trans person like having to like explain your existence or like any flavor of that thing, like that's extremely frustrating. But I think there is a difference where I am completely comfortable calling someone like a legitimate fucking bigot. I think the best example I can remember is there's this like hilarious and like also somewhat horrifying clip of like I think it was like a trans debate between Jankles and Lauren Southern, where he's like, hey, here's the evidence as to why you're wrong, and here's like all these studies, and she's like, well, I just don't believe that, and he's like, is there anything I could show you that change your mind? And she's like, no, and it's like, all right, so you are just a fucking bigot at that point, like it's like you literally say like this is my position and I refuse change. So there are people that are gettable, and I think you're right that like the Twitter's like obviously the cesspool. I got called a fucking ableist for saying school is important today, like I make because I make fun of anarchists, like I completely understand, like it's really fucking shitty, but like are there some people who are legitimately hateful, who like constantly push like horrifying agendas, who I am super fucking comfortable calling bigoted? Absolutely. Like Steven Crowder, like most like big right-wing content creators, I am totally fine doing it because they are explicitly they know better at that point, or at that point I give them so much responsibility that I don't give them the benefit of being naive. If you're some like person with like, you know, like 5-figure like followers, like at some point it's like you have the time and energy to do your fucking homework, and at this point you're actively making a choice to be bigoted. I hold those people like accountable a lot more than like some random fucking grandma who's like, what's non-binary mean?
No, sorry, Hans, no, like fuck your branch, burn it. No, we're fighting Fanatic. Fuck this shit. No,
I tried.
No, I actually took the time to read the article he provided. So he provided an article in our group chat.
I've never read the article. I'm not affiliated with this article.
You should have read the article. Right? Just read. It's very short. Like read the article.
I'm playing Pokemon.
So,
no.
Yeah, okay, great. Yes, that's much more important. But actually read this article. Right. So it's about that whole incident that happened at the Wii Spa in Los Angeles. That happened was it a month ago or something? Right. Quite a bit ago, where some women, like a woman complains, and I think she films it. If I'm remembering this correctly. That she like films her interactions with the spa management saying, hey, there was a man in the woman's dressing room, right? So she says this, and then this kicks off a ton of protests. So just looking at this article, like that he actually provided, it doesn't say that they actually filed charges against an individual who had done this thing, right? So that's not a thing, right?
I can show you the next part.
Okay,
I'll find you the next article where the police did it.
Oh, great. Well, now I'd love to see that too, right? But in any case, right? Even if that trans individual was there, because Wii Spa says they weren't there, so I await a Fanatic's article to show that, right? Like it's still.
Angel was the first alleged victim to file a report to LAPD.
No. Let me finish.
Did you read it?
Let me finish my sentence. Holy shit. Let me finish, then you can respond. I love to hear it, right? Even if that was the case, even if a trans individual was there, right? And like got dressed like everyone else, guess what? In LA, they have non-discriminatory laws, right? Like if there's a trans individual with who happens to have their male genitalia intact, that is not an assault. So this person, right? Yes, and I'm going to say it, the woman who reported it is a fucking bigot. I'll start there. She's a fucking bigot coming in saying that, oh, I saw a man. No, that's a trans woman. That's a woman that happened to be there. And the fact that she saw that person's genitalia, if that's the case, I don't know if that's the case yet. I wait that other article. But the fact that she saw that does not mean that she was necessarily fucking assaulted in a room where people were changing their clothes. So yes, she was a fucking bigot. All right, I'll look at your articles.
Okay, first off, if you actually read the article, then let's go to the bottom. First, you said you didn't know if they actually filed charges. It didn't say that, and it does. I'm going to read it really quickly. Angel was the first alleged victim to file a report with the LAPD, which she did on July 6th after the first weekend of protests. More women came forward in subsequent days and weeks with their accounts claiming to have observed male genitalia. So wait, hold on. So wait, you asked. I let you finish. So please let me finish really quickly. So first off, yes, they did file charges. That's already in the article. Secondly, later on, the LAPD actually filed charges and identified the individual who has a rap sheet dating all the way back to 2003 in which they had clearly been doing this before they were even identifying as trans, and they were an exhibitionist. So they were still having their male genitalia, and it's crazy to me that they could identify that this person was there, and the person later on even went on another thing and said, yes, I was there, but she didn't see me. I was underneath the water, so she had no idea. They're just hateful, right? So crazy, she didn't see a penis, but she knew a penis was there. She was able to accurately say, I saw male genitalia, and yet this person still has a penis and was there and has a rap sheet and has been and is an actual sex offender. So I think at this point, the idea that this is just something made up is crazy, and you're now doing the very thing that I said the leftists do, which is immediately call her a bigot when she's accurately talking about some person displaying male genitalia to freaking children.
Hold on.
That's crazy.
Were there children there? I haven't seen that. So hold on. I'm looking at.
Yeah,
this.
that was a major complaint of all the women that were there, is that there were underage children there.
I'll have to take a look at that. Right. It says a 52-year-old transgender woman, and I'm just reading this article now because the one you provided didn't actually say the thing that you said it said. Right. So I'm just reading this article now. So a 52-year-old transgender woman happened to change within that incident, right? So hold on, I got to read this full article and see if there's anything else that I'm missing. But like, do you believe that a trans, like moving, again, I have to read this article, but like, do you believe that if this person wasn't a flasher, let's say they were a flasher, right? If they weren't that, if they were just a transgender person, if all the rest of the facts of the article were true, right? Then what should this spa have done? Like, do you believe this was assault, right? Some flashing themselves when it's a person who identifies as transgender changing in the place where other people are changing. That the fact that male genitalia were on display necessarily means it's assault.
So wow, this gets pretty freaking heavy. I think this is a complete segue, but if we want to go there, yes, I will answer the question really quickly. Yes, I believe in a case that a person has male genitalia. For them to display male genitalia in a space specifically designated for women, I think is absolutely problematic. We have vested interest in the society. We have put lots of energy forward towards making sure that people are not exposed to the genitalia of the opposite sex. So the fact that this transgender person is displaying male genitalia to women and children in these spaces is absolutely absurd. I would say that it is problematic. I don't know if it would fall under the word assault. I would definitely say it should be criminal. The idea that you would be displaying male genitalia to the children, I think is crazy, because people typically do go out of their way to ensure that children are not exposed to the genitalia of the opposite sex. And this person, Darren McGee or whatever their name is, I posted the link, by the way. Darren Marriager.
I know.
That's the one where the actual authorities press the charges, release their name, release their rap sheet, so we know that this thing happened after being gaslit for multiple months and told that this thing was a hoax. So yes, I think in that kind of case, then it would be criminal. I think it should be something extremely problematic for people to be exposing the other genitalia to the genitalia of the opposite sex.
So sorry, what is so special about the genitalia of the opposite sex that does some sort of special harm to individuals, right? Like within that
to children.
Hold on. So as a guy, right? As a boy, I can go to a male changing room, see grown men's penises, and I can survive that incident, right? I can survive that incident and then move on, right? So this person did this thing, right? This person did this thing, and I'm reading this article, right? So this person did this thing, right? What should the spa do? Should it say that trans people, like, should they check their genitals before they go in, saying that if your genitalia isn't approved, that you can't go into this this area, that you're a trans individual. We can't do discrimination here. Literally, that's the law. We can't do discrimination, so they can't. So you're saying that they're not allowed to be there, and then them and those kids simply seeing that, like that counts as an assault.
Okay, so first off,
Okay, I wouldn't take my children into a space where there were naked adults anyways. And maybe that's the issue. Why the hell were they taking their kids into a space where there were naked adults anyways? I don't care if it's
well, we do it all the
law.
time. So at the YMCA, when boys used to be like freaking swimming at the YMCA, which is where a lot of people got their swimming lessons. Afterwards, when you would go into the locker room, they had an adult area and a boys area for swimming pools. But when you went into the locker room, it was just separated by gender, by sex, male and female. So in that case, yeah, a young boy might see the genitalia of a freaking older man. It happens all the freaking time. We do it. We in restrooms. If it comes up, like there's just people are exposed to the genitalia of whatever of older people. When a father is like demonstrating to his boy to teach him how to freaking pee in the freaking toilet, a father might pee in front of his son, and his son might see his genitalia. Like that's gonna happen. Father's not gonna do that with his daughter, right? Obviously, they pee differently, but the point is, typically, adults in this country have a vested interest in ensuring that children are not exposed to the genitalia of the opposite sex. There's various reasons for it. We don't have to go into all of those reasons, but that's something that we all know historically and presently that it's something that society does. It's something that they seek to avoid. The fact that someone, be they transgender or otherwise, would feel like they have the responsibility or the ability to skirt other people's efforts and display their genitalia to people of the opposite sex, to young children, is problematic.
That to a black person in the 60s during civil rights or something?
Wait, what are you talking about?
Because
oh my god, no, we're not doing it. We're not. Hold on. No, we're not doing it. I'm sorry. I can't. I'm not engaging.
Can I actually fucking say something? Holy shit!
I don't know where
he
can finish up
for a while.
Hold on. Shut up. I haven't heard what. I don't know where Captain Jones is going. But I'm
sorry, but no. Because fucking trans people were not allowed, and so like if I'm a trans, obviously, but like let's just like so I'm a trans woman. And I'm going to go pee in a public bathroom. I'm going to go into the women's section, right? But now, so in the 60s, 50s, whenever it was, 63, 62, black people were not allowed to go into. Isn't that analogous? In a lot of ways, I mean, obviously, there's a ton of other things to add.
Why do you need it? Why do you need to drag every topic back to like race issues? Like
I'm not trying to drag it back to race. I'm trying to have an actual fucking analogy.
This is enough, right? We can talk about
an actual comparison to describe it to.
Well,
to have two situations where you can actually like,
I'm gonna promote you to Private Jones. Can you tell me? Okay, so you I guess would have no issue with a trans woman pre-op being nude in front of children in the space where biological men are
I don't personally. I don't have a big issue with nudity in front of children when it's not like a sexual thing. Personally, because I've been in that situation. My parents were fucking liberal as shit. And like I remember going to fucking like these nudist camps, literally fucking nude camps. And there was like literally all
this explains so much about you, to be honest with you.
Hey, look, I don't know what the fuck you want me to say. Like, and here I am, a fucking cis het normie. Like, wow, it did so much to me.
Okay, that's fine. Like, let me ask you this question then. Okay, so then would you say that somebody who
maybe that's why I am the way I am, because I've experienced shit.
It's okay.
And I know firsthand it doesn't make you
Private Jones, please wait, hold on 2 seconds.
Whatever you think.
So would you say that someone who isn't okay with exposed male genitalia being around little girls in other contexts, right? Would you if it's not sexual, not in a sexual context, right? Let's say they're some dude just has his dick out, right? For some reason. Okay.
Dick out in the middle of the street? Yeah, that's indecent exposure.
Wait, why?
Why?
Okay, you just say you had no problem. You just say you had no problem with exposed genitalia.
Yeah, look,
because context
or nudity around children.
Because context matters. If you're at a fucking nude camp, then yeah, okay. Or if you're pulling some bullshit in Berkeley, like where they used to ride around on fucking bicycles naked as their protest, you know what I mean? Like, fucking, oh my god, I was
Wait,
so
okay,
scarred
so
by
then-
seeing
so
the
then-
dicks
okay,
and the
okay, so
vaginas
when
and,
you-
the tits.
Oh my
It was so,
So
scarring.
okay, so then let's say I have this spot. If this was not a trans woman,
such a
right? This
ridiculous
was just a dude who had his dick out in front of little girls at this spa. You'd have no issue with that.
So okay. So we have laws in this country, right? So if somebody is, yeah, that would probably sounds like a bad issue if he's going in there like dick hanging out, going like,
No, he's
"Hey,
just
I'm a
walking around
man
naked.
in a woman's body," because we do have an
No,
infrastructure,
don't appeal to the
of
laws.
a whole
I'm asking
infrastructure
about your
built
personal
up
belief system, right?
over.
I'm not asking
my
about the
personal
laws that we have
opinion,
on the books, right? I'm asking
Uh-huh.
about your belief. So you said you have no problem with nudity in certain contexts, right? Nudity around children. So
Yeah.
if a dude was rocking naked around this spa
Uh-huh.
and there were little girls around, you'd have no problem with that.
What's the context of him walking around?
He's at a
Are
spa.
there people
Maybe he's
who
walking
are
to his
he's at
hot
a
tub or
spa?
something.
Is nudity allowed in the section that he's at? See, I have so many questions already.
I'm
right
not.
off the
I'm
bat
not. I'm
for
not
your
asking.
little scenario.
No. But you said
My
that-
little frog man.
So is it that there's like a law that says it can happen, or a rule in the spa that says
So
it
we
can
have
happen? That's the
equality
issue?
laws, and I don't give a fuck what you personally think. Personally, for me, I don't really give a fuck. It really depends
Well,
on
that's
the
what I'm
context.
asking you.
It
Stop
really
appealing to the
so
laws
I'm
if you just
asking
don't
what
give
the
a fuck.
context is of this specific made-up hypothetical scenario that you're trying to pin me down on.
I'm
Go
not trying
ahead.
to pin you down
So
on
I just wanna
anything.
say-
Okay,
You
I think
are,
this is why
Mr.
you're
Frog.
attempting
You
to
are,
weasel
you little
around.
fascist
I'm
frog,
just
okay?
trying to understand
Guys,
what you
we're
think.
dancing
So
around this.
yeah,
Like, come on. It's the parents' responsibility to decide where they want to take their kids. They know that they could be taking them into a place where they could be exposed to nudity. With the way that society is now, it's not on the transgender person to have to like go scurry away somewhere because people come in that might object to them existing. No, the parent, if they don't want to see that shit, if they don't want their kid to see that shit, don't take them into the space. And that's
So there it
something
is.
you're just gonna
Okay,
have
but
to
can't
learn.
you see how
There's that leftist
people
stuff
who are
again.
normies
Go ahead.
might interpret this like a little bit differently, right? Not everyone has as much information on this topic as a lot of people, right? So yes, I think I think we should be more accommodating to trans people, and maybe it's not the world's biggest deal. However, from the perspective of, I guess, normies who come into this, who might be completely supporting of trans people in all other contexts, this is pushing them away from accepting trans people. Now, I agree that it shouldn't push them away, and that this is something that we should have to deal with. But the fact is that you're taking someone who might be okay with trans people in 99.9% of contexts, and by labeling them transphobic, well, they're going to become transphobic in those other 99% of
So
contexts.
hold on.
exactly
I'm,
it. It's
I'm
that lefty
okay,
stuff all
I'm
over
okay,
again. Like I said,
I'm
I
okay
didn't-
with
I didn't
gay
label any-
people.
I just called
I
the
am
frog a
definitely-
fascist.
I am definitely okay with gay people. I love gay people, right? But you know what? I was walking with my children, and two men were making out. They did this in public. My kids saw that. My kids
Brian,
saw
this is
that.
not an analogy.
No.
It's
Oh,
number one. That's
but
not
this was
analogous.
no, this was the argument
It
in the
is.
past, right? This exactly was the
It
argument
is
in the
analogous.
past, right?
Because that was the thing that was
so-
not allowed in the
so
past.
the
Nope.
context,
Nope.
no,
What if those
in the
same
context,
what if those
in the
same people had a
context-
problem with hetero
in the
people doing it in front of
context of them being fucking naked, right? In a place where nudity is a thing, right? Like, I think those kids were traumatized. Well, they were traumatized not by seeing a dick, right? You can see a dick and you can fucking survive, right? I know a lot of kids who were young and saw a male dick, like women saw a male dick. They made it out alive. They made it out alive, right? No. What traumatized them was the reaction of the adults, was the reaction of everyone around them. Holy shit, a dick! Holy crap!
And just exactly, anecdotally, I have a little niece who used to.
Y'all
she
just
was
like keep going back
she
and
was like
forth
two
and just
years
Hold on,
old.
sidestepping
I
each
will
other.
give you a time.
Hey, oh my God. All right.
Shut up.
Can we just like reduce this like to some?
Hold on. I just want to finish this point, right? I want to give
Okay.
Fanatic space to be able to respond, right? So like the response to this, that's the traumatic part, right? When you tell people you've just been victimized, right? I mean, you saw a dick, right? Like, and let's talk about this individual. I don't know anything about this individual, right? That was charged with, right? Now that I have an article that says it, okay, right? The other one just said like there were 5 charges made, but like it didn't say where those charges were made to, like charging the spa or like an individual. So it's an individual. Okay, fine, right? And it said that this person had 2 charges of indecent exposure in the past, right? So, what does that mean? I actually don't know, because they have to register as a sex offender in that case, right? And if that's the case, right? Well, I mean, that's bad. They shouldn't have been there. If there was people who were under 18, then I'm still supposed they shouldn't have been there in the first place. But I will say that our sex offender laws are actually fucking ridiculous. So I would actually have to look at those specific incidences to draw a conclusion, because I don't actually trust our sex offender laws. That's to the side point. But let's pretend it's worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, right? What happened? Did they try to attack these individuals, right? Or was this person there, right? I mean, they probably should, and there's someone who was under 18 that actually probably shouldn't have been there in the first place, so there's that. But were they simply existing in an area, right, that still, like this, the spa who doesn't do like a rap sheet, like doesn't run the records of every person who comes into their space, right? They were allowed to be in. That was the policy, and that's the laws of Los Angeles, that you can't discriminate. So what was a spa supposed to do? And again, if this person is a sex offender, they probably shouldn't have been there if there was people under 18. But like, if that person hadn't been in that situation, right? Is that trans person supposed to simply not exist in spaces? Go away. And if you have an otherwise female body, should you be in a male space? Should that be where they put them, right? Like, worrying about what like fucking normally says. Yeah, bigots. Oh, sorry, I should pull back. People will say all kinds of bigoted things, right? And it's our job as a society to move these things along and push back. So I think that's fair. But sorry, Fanatic.
So, I mean, I think you did it. You hit all the things that I said about. First off, here we had one guy making this statement, Jason Society, quite a while ago, and now that take just got to sit there all this time before it could be addressed, because it's a panel, and that just happens to be how they work. Nobody's hating anybody for just existing, which was the phrase that you tried to do, and this is exactly what leftists do. Instead of actually talking about the conversation, people just hating someone for existing. It had nothing to do with the person existing. You could have you could be perfectly fine with them doing that and literally advocate for them while still recognizing it's probably not appropriate for you to just be displaying the male genitalia to little girls. I think those are 2 totally different things right there, number 1. Number 2, yes, the idea that this thing is like that we're trying to discriminate against trans people. It's not about discriminating against trans people. The trans person is making the decision about which place that they're having to choose to go to. And if their genitalia doesn't align with the genitalia of the people that are going to be there, then it obviously seems like they don't belong there. And
That's
it
a
is inappropriate
discriminatory
for obviously.
practice.
And
That is
I love that you guys are all here trying to pretend as if your way is best, as if you know better than the vast majority of Americans, the vast majority of parents.
What should they do? What are they supposed to do? What's the answer? Because right now you're saying they shouldn't be able to exist in the same space.
Hold on, Jason, let him finish.
Most of you haven't had any children, so you can't speak for the rest of them. And so it's really crazy to me that you guys somehow feel like you're the authorities. This is why I'm talking about the authoritarian left once again. So now you guys are displaying it. One, you automatically label lady a bigot inappropriately. Secondly, now you're sitting there saying, oh, people are hating on trans people for just existing. Thirdly, now you're sitting here saying, well, it's our sex offender laws really don't mean anything. So now you're making excuses for this obvious predator who's been doing it.
Is it okay for a woman to show
for this obvious predator who's been doing this?
Is it okay
for this obvious predator who has been doing this for decades? I shut up and let y'all niggas finish. So you're gonna shut the hell up and let me finish, okay? It's that simple. For this obvious predator who's been doing this for multiple decades, and it's really, really crazy to me. It's not about discriminating. I think you could easily. There are plenty of solutions that are available. One, they can go to the genitalia. They can go to they can go to the freaking portion of the spa that matches their genitalia. They can do
what
this.
about the little...
You're not going to keep interjecting, buddy. You're going to shut up for a second. You're not going to keep doing this. You're going to shut the hell up for a second.
I got to mute you.
It's what you're going to do.
I got to mute you. He's got to be able to finish. Go ahead, Fanatic. I'm sorry.
God, Jesus. Anyway, they can go to the one that matches their genitalia, the one that's assigned to them. They have that option. Then they also have the option of well yeah, I mean that's their choice. They can also I mean, I guess they could choose not to go to the spot, or the spot can just go ahead and make it a statement like, hey, well, okay, then at this point, then we're just going to allow everyone to go to every section, and of course, then you're going to result in the problems that you had, because now at this point, you're encroaching on vulnerable spaces for women, where women typically want to go. They have the expectation, the reasonable expectation, that they're not going to be exposed to the genitalia of the opposite sex, and now you're basically saying, well, this is your space. I mean, we're taking your space from you. It's not like Korean spas are a dime a freaking dozen. It's not like they can just go to any other place. So the fact of the matter is, this is an encroachment, and there are very valid reasons why people would be afraid of the opposite genitalia. If you guys all claim to be these leftists that support women and all this other nonsense, which you guys always try to pretend to until somebody actually starts pushing back against your protected class, the trans people, you could actually recognize that there are valid reasons, such as other women who have been assaulted, who can be traumatized by being exposed to penis. So there's plenty of reasons why women would be okay in a nude section only with other people who match their genitalia. So then there's a sense of kindredness, a sense of vulnerability. We all recognize this, but we're going to throw that all out the window because we got to protect trans people.
I mean,
and that's what you're doing, and everybody else a bigot in the process.
Yeah, so I would like to point out, I am one of the good ones. I have not labeled anybody a bigot. I have not labeled anybody a transphobe yet. Keep on going though. I might actually. No, I'm just kidding. But I would just like to say, like, I don't know about this whole kindred spirit thing. Like, I've never heard of that. The whole thing, the whole situation that you just outlined with a woman in a bathroom with the kindred spirit thing. Like, I've never felt that when I went into a bathroom with all the dicks swinging out and taking pisses. You know, I've never felt that. I don't know. Maybe that's just me making this a little awkward, but like, I wasn't really convinced by that. That didn't really hit me. And like,
oh, you don't have to be. It's fine.
Well, that's fine. Yeah. And I would like, I think that there's probably other people out there who are just a little like dubious. And like, what I would like to say is that I do think, going way back to the beginning, I do think that there is a problem with telling somebody who's probably really unconsciously biased and that they're like bigot, because what you end up doing is you end up not being able to actually educate that person. Like, and I do think that there's just a lot of people who are kind of back in 2010 right now. They haven't grown up to 2021, and like they need the education. Like, I have a friend who still says stuff like we're back in like 2012, still saying those problematic sayings that like none of us fucking use anymore. And I have to grill him. I have to educate him. And he like sometimes he pushes back and he's like, you're just being cancel culture, whatever. Like he'll say the fucking what's the guy's name? Loud New Yorker comedian who's constantly talking about cancel culture. But like, I just don't think that's. I think that, yeah, we should allow for people to be educated, but at the same time, I don't think that any of the situations you guys have outlined have been something that I would be against. Yeah, I do tend to think like we're just being exclusionary.
Well, I think we need to be honest about the fact that a massive cultural change like this, it's going to take a lot of time for people to become comfortable with it. Right? A lot of people grow up in the 70s.
Sorry, I just lost a Pokemon. 1 second.
So
he still apparently hasn't let go of Pokemon.
So we'll go to Doobie, then Top Dolphin, and then Jason. Okay.
So yeah, like I was saying, I think massive cultural changes like this, and it is a massive cultural change. It's going to take some time for people to catch up, get used to it, become comfortable with it, if that's what we're going to do. And I think we need to be patient with people on the way there. I don't think it makes sense to just label them bigots or hateful or any of this shit. I don't think that's helpful. I think you got to be patient while still guiding people toward the correct conclusion.
I totally agree with that. And like, that's why I like to point out stuff like I saw tits and ass and vagina when I was young, and like, I don't think it affected me. I also saw a lot of, what really the thing that affected me the most, I think that the thing that was the most upsetting to me was like like when I was in the fucking, like, speaking of this situation, like at the YMCA, seeing these old dudes' dicks hanging out in the fucking gym. Like, if anything, we should just not have these public spaces. It's fucking, I think it's just uncomfortable in general. I fucking hate the gyms. I hate these open air dick waving in the fucking in the wind. You know what I mean? Make these public or private spaces instead of having all this fucking bullshit, antiquated. Let's have everyone fucking all the guys over here and all the girls over here. You know what I mean? Fuck that.
Captain A, isn't it crazy to me that you can literally sit here and admit to me that seeing the genitalia that you closely identify with, assuming you also have a dick, that seeing that could traumatize you, but you can't understand how that would traumatize a young girl. So, man, your mind is interesting, bro.
No, dude, that's actually so stupid. I was talking about the opposite because we were talking about the opposite genitalia and seeing that. So you see, I was talking about the opposite. You were also talking about the opposite of a young girl.
You just said the words that what traumatized you the most.
Wait, I'm sorry. Can we pin this down? Do you not see how that's a difference?
Smarty, you just said that
fanatic. I haven't insulted you a single time, but we are on the way to doing it. Okay.
Okay, good. Insult
you
away.
Just said I can pull the same bullshit.
You come on. That the thing that traumatized you was you being exposed to older dudes.
I said it in jest, you fucking asshole. Jesus Christ.
Okay, so that's different. So you did say that. So now you're gonna walk it back as a joke.
So bad
we all see you.
You are so
I'm
bad
faith
faith
for you making this
you
statement.
Are bad
me calling you out on a statement you say, and now I'm bad faith.
I actually listened to the intonations and people's voices.
Walk that back, buddy. Because somebody
I didn't walk shit back. You are such a joker, my dude.
Okay.
Holy fuck. Hey, look. It's pretty obvious when somebody makes a fucking sarcastic comment if you listen to the words that come out of their mouth. I've been listening to you, so don't fucking act like you're so fucking insulted. All right.
Yeah, I'm only insulted that you sitting here trying to gaslight me as if you didn't just say the words. I heard the words that came out of your mouth because I actually
but you didn't hear the tone in which I said it, which really counts, and it matters.
And if I didn't hold you to the fire, then you would have maintained the lie that you just tried to tell.
Lie.
You didn't say the words. So now that I'm able to actually hold you to the fire, now it's it was a joke. I was just saying it in jest. Nah, you said it, and now you just recognize you contradicted yourself.
We gotta move forward. We gotta move forward.
We're the only one over here.
We gotta move forward. Okay, no more. We don't need to toss more insults to each other, right? Like I am, to be very clear, and Fnatic and I have gotten into it many times before. This won't be the first. It's not the first for the last time. I don't look at Fnatic as a bigot. I look at a person who has a deep disagreement with me, like a deep disagreement with me on this. But like, let's try to keep it civil among ourselves at the very least, right? And then like like talk about these. Yeah, let's.
I apologize then as well for that.
No problem. All right, let's go to Top Dolphin, then Jason Society, and then we do have another topic. we've already run over this one.
Yeah, how do I follow that? I guess what I want to say is that like, first off, the idea that like genitalia can't traumatize someone of the same or other like other sex is like ridiculous. Like seeing a penis or a vagina in a place where you don't expect a penis or a vagina to be, can be traumatizing for adults and for children. And as we like with trans people in our society, there's a lot of questions about where they fit in and a lot of questions about like the structures that we have in place and how those might need to be changed. One that's brought up a lot, I'm sure everybody here is aware of this fucking stupid transport debate that everybody likes to have. Like there's so many places that in which like trans people don't fit into our neatly like girls and boys, male and female society. And I think that it's very important to like take like how the trans person feels into account. But it's also very important to like kind of meet society where it's at in the process. So like we don't want little girls or adult women accidentally being traumatized by penises in changing rooms or in spas. But at the same time, we also want trans women to be accepted in these places because they shouldn't be excluded from them. So like in this specific case, I think the change is about managing people's expectations on what you encounter in these spaces. But these are processes that take time, and that we need to like instead of like running and like calling this woman a bigot, or also instead of like pointing to this like I don't know, like if they're a sex offender, that's kind of fun. But instead of pointing to this person who is trans and has a penis in a female space and saying that's a man, that's a man, that's a man, we need to be a little bit more like accepting of both sides of that and like work together to like integrate trans people in the culture because like call you out here, Prime. Like, calling this woman a bigot 1,000 times isn't gonna fix the problem that like
I didn't say
women are still gonna. You totally did.
I didn't. No,
all
I
right?
didn't. No, no. I said I called her a bigot because she's a bigot. And I have further proof of that. But I didn't say it would solve the problem. It makes me feel better. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, it does. Well, okay. Yeah. Okay. You didn't say it's gonna solve the problem, but it doesn't help solve the problem. Like yelling at these people, calling them bigot, I would say even hurts the problem. Or makes the problem worse, but it doesn't help us get trans women into a place in society where they feel comfortable. And at the same time, like just, and this is gonna suck because this is just the reality of the world we live in. And I hope that in a few years from now, it's not the case. But trans women just dropping their pants in women's spaces isn't gonna help that either. And so we need to like work on this as like a society together rather than like like doing all these things and just saying anybody who doesn't agree with me can fuck off.
So I'll put this in, and then we'll go to Jason's side, and then we might actually just have to move out. Though I'll you know what? Because problematic pan's on the other side of it, I'll make sure problematic pan goes first, right? I want to make sure the other side gets the last word, okay? And then we'll move on to the next topic. But just quickly, thank you for the kindness of one of our chatters there. I provided that a website by the woman who made the complaint, right? This person previously identifies themselves as Angel. Apparently, they go by Cubana Angel online. They had their own website here, and I provided that link into the group chat, right? Where like they talk about, they explain the incident from their perspective, right? And they talk about repealing laws aimed at protecting trans individuals, right? Talking about the threat of trans people. Like, this is exactly it. This is exactly it. So you tell me this person is not a bigot. There's no evidence this person might be a bigot. No, I think there is. I think we could actually make the assumption specifically with how they reacted, right? You know what? You know what? My parents might have reacted the same way. And I'd call them bigots for that too. If they did that, then they'd be bigots for that too. And I would argue against them. I would tell them like this shit is uncalled for, and they need to change them. I've changed their minds on gay people in general, right? It took me years to make it happen. It took me years, right? They have bigoted views, right? Because they were bigots to our gay brothers and sisters, right? Until I fought them on it. And that's what you have to do. You have to confront people on these things, right? But you can, I guess you can say that, well, like to actually change their mind, that it might not be conducive to call them bigots. So I'll give you that one. So I'll go to Jason and then problematic pan. And then we got to move on. We got to move on after that. All right. So Jason first.
Okay, so one thing I wanted to address too, that's kind of the root underneath all of this, is that America has a propensity to over-sexualize the human body. That's part of the reason why we have some of these problems. That's part of the reason why we have some of this outrage. You go to European countries where it's very normal to see people naked, where they have nude beaches everywhere, where it's not a thing. You're going to get a lot less pushback on these kinds of things. One question I have though, that maybe Fanatic can help me out with, that I just haven't figured out. So the trans woman who has had top surgery, right? So she's got breasts, is supposed to go into the male locker room, right? Is that what you're saying?
I guess,
because it seems to me that would be the same. You would end up in the same issue. You know, you still have a little boy seeing a man with breasts. You know, now isn't that just as traumatizing?
Fanatic, so, you can. Well, let's find out what Fanatic thinks quickly, and then we'll continue on.
Well, sure. I mean, I guess I felt the answer to that question should be obvious because we were specifically talking about genitalia, and I don't know if your parents ever had the birds and the bees conversation with you, but breasts are not considered genitalia, as they have literally nothing to do with like reproduction. So in that case, then a person who got top surgery but did not get their genitalia changed, then it would probably make the sense for them to go to the bathroom that matches the genitalia more that matches the genitalia. So yeah, that's the answer to that question.
So my 10-year-old son should see a woman with a pre-op woman in the locker rooms with breasts and everything, and I shouldn't expect them to be traumatized.
Well, typically genitalia would probably be something that people have put more of an invested interest in actually making sure that those things weren't seen, number one. And then number two, you have to also recognize that more often than not, like in places like bathrooms and things like that, then they're not going to be exposing their breasts, right? And then third, there are plenty of males out there with, what's it called, gynecomastia? I forget exactly how it's pronounced. But males have breasts all the time. Typically overweight individuals, but they have them all the freaking time. So the fact that like children would see someone with breasts, that can easily be explained away. It can easily make sense. It's something that they probably encounter. Little kids can have breasts themselves in the form of gynecomastia. So like the idea like that this is something that would be equally traumatizing is absolutely ridiculous. And I think you know better than that.
It's not. It's no different. What you're saying is no different. It is literally no different. It's a naked human body, and that's what it comes down to. And that's my point. If we have over sexualized the human body enough to where we just can't have a rational conversation with our kids to say, hey, listen, there are some people that are like this, and you need to understand that there are some people that are like this, and that's life. That's the world we live in. That's the conversation that needs to happen. And I think it lends more to a failure in parenting that a child would be alarmed by this than it is the actual person who's doing it. Now, this individual, I'll say, like you said, that's a little bit different story. Okay, contextually, it's a different story because they have a pattern of doing this, like you're saying. They have a pattern of being an exhibitionist and doing this probably for the reason of being
no. Push back.
I don't think that's every single
Jason,
person.
push back on that. Push back on that one topic, right? Because this person might be like a terrible sex offender, right? Who just likes exposing themselves to other people, right? But think about what's happening now. If they are actually a trans individual, right? A pre-op trans individual, and that something like this has happened before, and they've been charged before, then the reason they're charged is because they're pre-op and someone freaked out saying, oh no, it's a man who's exposed themselves to me, right? I don't know if that's the case. I can't say that okay, but that happens to trans individuals, to trans women, right? They'll say like, well, I saw a penis, right, on a person. They call themselves a woman, but like it's actually a man in a dress, right? It was a man in a dress, and they showed me the penis, and so now I'm traumatized, and so we criminalize them. That actually happens. So that might have happened here. I can't say that it has. But I'm saying,
right. And I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
No, wait. Before you do, I just want to make sure that we point out that, by the way, the other cases that we're talking about, one of them was as early as, I believe, 2003 and
2006.
In 2003, huh?
2003 and 2006, yeah.
Right. So then in 2003, let's not pretend like the zeitgeist at the time was something that would be somewhat allowing of people of transgender people to be exposing themselves to other people. So even if in that time they perfectly identified as transgender, that was not an acceptable thing within the zeitgeist at that time, and they knew exactly what the freak they were doing.
Interracial
And
marriage.
we have all of the president that
Interracial
shows
marriage
all
was
the
not
parents
within the
are
zeitgeist
clearly
in
not
the 20s, so
I'm
they
not
should
going to
be
entertain the
criminalized.
race thing. We can do that another
they're
time. But
criminalized.
clearly all of the
Not
historical
in the zeitgeist.
presidents showed that people were not interested in any capacity in having their children exposed to the genitalia of the opposite sex. So, and it's still that way, by the way.
I'm
That
not
hadn't
interested
changed.
in my
So
white
the fact
daughter being touched by a black man. It's the 20s though, but so it's not in the zeitgeist, so that makes sense.
Oh my God! So that's all you're gonna do. All you're gonna do is just make this disanalogous thing, and that's going to be your counter. Even though we have, like I said, continued vested interest in ensuring that children are exposed to the genitalia of the opposite sex, but leftists don't care about the zeitgeist.
boobs are
Leftists
fine.
don't care.
No,
they don't
what I'm
care.
sure about
They
it-
don't care about
properly
people. They don't care
educating
about how people
boobs
want to
are
raise
fine.
their kids because they're the authoritarians. They decide
What I
what's
care
appropriate.
about
They
is
decide
people-
what's okay. They're the ones that get to go ahead and skirt laws and do whatever the freak they need to, just so that their agenda gets pushed, and you guys are representing it perfectly. It's
Oh,
it's
you don't think
perfectly
the right
visible.
does this
Can
all
y'all
the
just do this in the
time?
after
Come
panel?
on.
Like I thought we were doing outros.
Okay. Well, we don't do outros here. Takes too long. But Pan, finish up, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out to everyone here that 99% of trans women aren't looking to go into traditionally women's spaces and show their genitalia off.
Thank
they
you.
are looking to pass. Like, if we, I don't understand why we're choosing this optics poison as a hill to die on. We're making it seem like issue is more than what it is, like an extremely niche part of trans liberation. Like, if we tell the public that what trans women really want and what trans women liberation really is their ability to go into fucking traditionally female spaces and show off their penises, we're not going to win. So I don't understand why we're dying on this hill. I think what Fnatic was talking about is by focusing on these super niche issues that are, the least defensible parts. I still think they're defensible and support them, but I acknowledge that they are much harder to defend to the public. And by focusing on this, we are completely poisoning, I guess, the public discourse on this by focusing on something that most trans women don't want and that makes them look bad. That's all I want to say.
I don't agree with that most thing. I'm just gonna. All right, I'll have to hold it. I'll hold it. I'll hold it because I think it's the last word.
I didn't realize choosing a public bathroom was niche, though.
Yeah.
This is not using a public
I
bathroom.
actually never
stall.
use the
public
bathroom.
bathrooms are completely. You don't see anyone's fucking genitalia in public bathrooms.
Okay.
Unless it's like a shower place. If you mean like the bathroom that you go
This
to,
was a
like,
shower
that has
place.
stalls and shit.
But okay, all right.
I only piss
they
and
were
shit in my own toilet.
They were in a jacuzzi at the time. It wasn't a shower. It wasn't a locker room. They were in a jacuzzi at the time.
Okay. So let the other side. Like we gotta get the last word. So all right. Thank you for that. That did not. That was unplanned. That was completely unplanned. We gotta move on. Yeah. Yeah. So. Yeah, that January 6th riot, that was bad. All right, moving on. Topic 2. In late August, the U.S. launched a drone strike, supposedly stop a secondary attack on the Kabul airport by ISIS-K. However, they, meaning the Pentagon, have now just admitted that the car that they hit was not operated by a terrorist, but by an aid worker. Furthermore, the strike killed at least 7 children. Should there be any consequences for this attack? If so, what would they do? Does this demonstrate that U.S. intelligence is a failure and that should not be relied on? Okay. Yeah, so this was a thing. A lot of people came in here and lectured me about like the goodness and the rightness of U.S. drone strikes, and that like this was obviously the moral act. Once again, I argued for we need boots on the ground. I actually argued that maybe we should like have work with the Taliban because we're gonna have to work with the Taliban, right? To actually arrest these individuals. And it turns out once again, who knows? Who could have seen it coming that the U.S. was wrong? They've admitted it, and they've killed innocent civilians in this strike, right? Including it looks like 7 children. So, said U.S. So is this a failure? And what should the consequences be, if any? Captain A. Jones, will work our way around.
Yeah, this was like super unsurprising to me. Like, also 7 children. Wow, yay. Good job, United States. We did it again with fantastic intelligence work, and yeah, I think this is a big red flag for the proponents of the drone strike theory of waging war against terrorism, and not to say that terrorism isn't a thing, but against people in countries far off. Like I really don't think that is a viable solution. Do I think people should be punished for it? I don't know who I would punish for it. Like shit happens, ultimately Biden probably ordered the strike, and I definitely don't want Biden to be punished for it. So like, I don't know, maybe there should be a little military try, but or something. How the fuck did we end up hitting somebody? But wait, we've been doing this for fucking 20 years. Why is this such a surprise? Like, this is collateral damage. This is what happens when you're throwing missiles around and hitting things. People die, and sometimes you get the wrong people. Anyway, I'll leave the rest for the panel.
Dolphin.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know if anybody is, but I'm not gonna come out here and try to defend that. Like the U.S. shot down fucking civilians. 7 children, 3 adults, all part of a family were killed, and it's tragic. Intelligence makes mistakes, and I think that like I kind of looked into like how do we usually pay for the mistakes, and it's like a mess. It's a fucking mess. It seems like sometimes like the CIA reaches out to governments or reaches out to families to try to give money, but I mean they got the whole family this time, so they ain't got to pay anything, right? no money's going out that way. But yeah. I looked to see if there were like I know there's laws against like hurting civilians and even in like war times and stuff. I don't know what the punishment. I guess the punishment for those laws is technically war, but like no one really wants to go to war over 10 civilians dying right now. So it just seems like a really fucked up situation, and I think that like it would be really cool if there are ways in which we could necessarily make sure that like we hold the people accountable um who end up doing these things. But I don't necessarily think drone strikes are bad. I wanted to put that out there.
Okay, let's go to Pan.
Yeah, I just want to say that obviously this is a horrible tragedy and unfortunately unsurprising. In situations like, but in situations like this, we're acting on limited information. On one hand, we think there might be a terrorist attack, and on the other hand, we might accidentally bomb a family. Whatever you think of that moral calculus and whatever we should do, the clear solution, in my opinion, is to not be in that situation in the first place. I think that this shows exactly why we need to get out of Afghanistan. If we're, being in Afghanistan is going to put us in a position to have to make these hard moral decisions like these that have, in my opinion, no right answer. I don't know what the right answer to that question is. Do you tend to try to save 100? I don't know. But what I do know is that we can avoid this situation altogether by not being in Afghanistan. And I think that this is a perfect reason why Biden was right to get us out of there.
Thank you. Let's go to Jason.
So yeah, this is horrible. This is a bad move militarily. It's a bad move optically. Everything that's happened with this thing, and honestly, everything that's happened with our pull out of Afghanistan has been pretty much a shit show. We've had horrible information. You know, our intelligence gathering is not good, and we're showing that right now in Afghanistan. It's horrible. Like, they followed these people around for 8 hours, and you're telling me they couldn't figure out that they were putting water in their car? They followed them around for 8 hours. No, none of this is acceptable. We have to figure out what we're doing over there, and we need to be much more cautious. How do you follow somebody for 8 hours and bomb a truck that's got a bunch of children in it? Even if you're making this targeted attack or what have you, why would you do it with children in the vehicle?
Oh my god.
How to get this guy, right?
Hold on.
You did it when they were children?
Sorry, what was that? Jason? What happened to the sound?
Audio.
Yeah, someone's.
Yeah, his audio just cut out a little
Yeah,
bit.
Jason.
Switch to your webcam, probably.
So what I was saying is just, you know, we have failed in our.
Okay,
Uh-oh.
you're having. Okay, so
We failed at that. Sorry, I just muted myself. Anyways,
okay,
that was it.
all right. I suspect CIA involvement again. Right? They realized counterpoints wasn't enough, right? Others had to be shut down. But thank you, Jason. We got most. Let's go to
one Twitch streamer at a time.
They're silencing us. Let's go to Hans.
Yeah, obviously, obligatory. This was a terrible tragedy. I think everyone here agrees that we need better intelligence. I don't think this single thing is like a systemic example of like the drone program. There's like studies back and forth about whether or not like it's better than say like traditional bombings. I think it's much more just like from a utilitarian like perspective, like right tool for the job. Like if Prime's correct on an issue and we have to like do a boots on the ground kind of thing, or like work with say like the current government of Afghanistan, like that's totally fine. It's just about whatever like again like does the best thing. I think a lot of people are patting themselves in the back for not believing the U.S. government, and again like I get that, I get not believing the government. I don't think that's like a sustainable thing in terms of like I prefer to like believe institutions until I'm like given like evidence otherwise. Otherwise, I feel like at that point like truth is like non-existent. And I think right now there are institutions of power that are holding potentially like the people here accountable. I believe it was and one of the articles I looked was I think it was Congressman Schiff is considering holding a House hearing to potentially hold some of the people responsible for like that decision accountable. And I think that's a perfect example of like if that does take place of the system working, that we do have to hold the people accountable who like do these sorts of things. And if that's the case, yeah, does that mean we should like stop all drone strikes forever? I don't think that like is a reasonable response to this. Again, I know that's like an unpopular like lefty take, but I feel like we can say that something is a terrible tragedy without saying that like we should never like use drone strikes because like and if people want to say the alternative pan, I get it, buddy. Like that, oh, like the best thing is just not be there at all. Yes, I also agree that the best way to never have problems is to never have problems. So like if we could only go beyond plus ultra, I agree that we would have no foreign policy issues whatsoever. But that's not the world we live in. I think we have to be realistic and use the right tool for the job. And we fuck up, we hold ourselves accountable. And then if we don't hold ourselves accountable, we fucking make the system change so that we can hold ourselves accountable. So yeah.
Okie dokie. Doobie. I don't know why I said that. Sorry.
So shit happens. I don't think that we should stop the drone strikes. I don't think that this says anything about American intelligence as a whole. I don't think there should be any consequences. It's a mistake. This happens in wartime. Move on.
Oh, man. All right, let's go to Fanatic.
Whew, y'all hurt my heart. Okay, ultimately, the U.S. intelligence is the best intelligence is the best in the world. I would challenge you to find me a country who has better intelligence. But that doesn't mean that
Israel.
Okay, actually, you might be right about that one. I guess I could investigate that. They probably might be a good contender. I think that the idea is that this is a really precarious situation, right? Like, if you really look at it, the intelligence is going to be somewhat limited because of what that situation is in Afghanistan. And I think ultimately the idea becomes risk aversion, right? Or risk reward, right? Where it's like, man, we believe that this is it. We have a very limited amount of time to act. If they actually do attack this airport, like our Americans are stranded once again, this is going to be terrible, not just optically, but just whatever. And it's like, they're having to weigh and balance this out. Like, well, okay, do we take this chance? Like, it seems like the intelligence was pointing us in this direction. It turns out it was wrong, but I don't know that I would be able to indict the entire U.S. intelligence over that. I think overall, the situation sucks. Like, it absolutely sucks. It's absolutely terrible. It's completely grotesque, and the United States needs to go above and beyond and finding some way of doing some sort of restitution. It's gross. They're children. It's always bad. It's all bad. But yeah, you can't indict everything over a mistake made. I think that's crazy.
Okay.
Even if that mistake is really bad, the alternative is awful.
LSP.
Yeah, I wish I had something more comprehensive and holistic to add, but I feel like everyone's more or less covered the ground needed to be covered. So Skip might skip me for the opening.
Okay, well then I'll take your spot then. This is this is garbage, right? That we'd have no consequences. This was a clear failure. And how do we know it's a failure? Because it happened to happen in Kabul at a very in a very public time, right? Like where the eyes of the world happen to be watching. But like, how many other times? How many of these drone strikes have actually killed civilians? I don't know. I actually wouldn't be guessing, if I told you. If I tried to do, I would be dishonest and guessing. But how many of these drone strikes get the attention? If they're in rural bumfuck anywhere, right? Then who is there to actually investigate? The New York Times did an investigation. I've seen this before, and Fanatic, I think we're hearing you.
It's LSP.
Oh, that's LSP. Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I blame the black man for.
Unbelievable.
I'm sorry. See, the bigot right here. That's clearly. Yeah. So, like, how many times do we actually get this level of attention on a drone strike? Very rarely. Very rarely. But we just have to believe. That these people are being honest with us when they're saying, "Oh, we've killed militants, definitely," with the exact same intelligence strategy, right? Using the exact same strategy they employed here, they employed in other places. And can we expect the results to be much better? I'm sure they've actually hit their targets before. I'm not saying they have a 0% hit rate or anything like that, but like. You're saying we have to trust in institutions, right? And to a certain extent, that absolutely has to be the case. You don't have data otherwise, but we don't have data otherwise. Maybe that trust needs to be earned, right? And I have seen many things that have broken any of that trust. I've seen many times where we have bombed innocent civilians, And the only people who can tell us in most of these situations if they got it right is the military. And people are saying, well, we just got to move on. First of all, what happens to our processes? Like, are we going to investigate this? Are we going to say, well, how do we fuck? I think that's a base minimum. We fucked up, so whatever we're doing is the wrong thing to do. We start with that, right? Does anyone resign? At least does anyone resign for killing these kids? No, that's not important. No, it's war. It's war. I mean, it's the end of the war, but I suppose. But it's war. It's war. And so anything goes. And so there's no consequences for anything, right? No matter who dies. No matter who dies, there's no consequences. No biggie, right? What if it had been 100 people who've been killed? Right? What if they hit a market square and they were killed? No consequences. Ever for us, right? Dead civilians over there, no consequences ever here. I think that's a problem. I don't know, that's my thing.
Who would you want to resign?
I was just about to ask that.
The person, like fuck, what was? I'm sorry, I don't know his
Who
name.
ordered the strike?
Yeah, the person who ordered the strike.
The general, I think. I forget his name.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not a household name.
Okay, so
That's crazy.
Oh,
yeah.
That's crazy. It's crazy
Well,
to do.
here's the thing.
I don't think a general should be.
We don't know like what the odds were in this situation. He would have been considered a hero if it was the other way around, and
It
he
wasn't.
did stop.
I'm
aware.
hours.
But
They
what
could
I'm
have
saying is the
stopped
moral
them and
value
done
of an action
anything.
shouldn't depend solely on if he gets lucky via the consequences, right? If you're weighing the risks of an event and you weigh it like differently and you get it wrong, you can't be blamed for that, in my opinion. What you can be blamed for is being in the position where you have imperfect information and lives at risk in the first place. That's the only thing that can be done. You can't blame the general for saying, "Oh, well, I think someone's about to kill 100 people, so I'm going to bomb this car." You can't blame him for that. The only way to stop this
because
is
then
to-
nobody would want to take the shot in the situation because exactly we're working with percentages here now and what I would like to say is
no, before you do that, to respond to Pan, right? Like, so I
was responding to that.
No. So like, you're admitting, okay, so it's luck now. It's luck, I guess, right? It's everyone. U.S. intelligence is just luck. Right? It's not actually a systemic process in which you comb through the data and find like the most likely outcome or most likely prediction of events or the current situation, right? It's none of those things, right?
No,
it's
most likely implies a percentage, right?
You just said no. It's not.
Okay,
that's not luck.
Maybe I meant
that's not
randomness.
luck.
Maybe I meant randomness, not luck.
Okay. All right. Well,
Randomness would be the same as
So
luck.
wait,
I think it's the same.
Hold on. That's not luck. And there's nothing in life. There's very few things in life that are absolutely certain, right? Like it takes rigorous research. This is why, like, we have things like called like negligence, right? Like, we understand that you can take an action, and because you weren't thorough and your preparedness, that other people got hurt, and that you are responsible for that. So, but apparently this doesn't apply at all when we're tossing bombs down on a city. That part doesn't matter.
It does
Yeah,
apply,
so-
but if he did his research and became 80% certain, and it was he was wrong because there is another 20% in that 80%, then I would say that no, like he doesn't need to be held accountable for that. What needs to be held accountable for is again the person who put him in that situation in the first place, where he has to decide the lives.
No, it goes the opposite way. Like he has to trust intelligence that he's getting from people on the ground. You think it's the general who's literally looking at the footage and deciding whether it's bombs being loaded into the back of the van? No, that's somebody else who's doing that. It's not the fucking general. It's somebody else. Like so I think like if we're trying to dispense responsibility here, the responsibility is on the general to dispense responsibility on the people who gave him the bad fucking information. That shows that he's a good general. But yeah, we cannot have him or this general doubting himself the next time he's in the fucking situation where he needs to pull the trigger. Like, and yeah,
Absolutely.
it is
And I
based
wanna
on
ask a
percentage
question.
odds.
Wait, we need to
Like,
be
it is
Can I ask
based
you a
on
question
percentage
really
odds.
quick,
If we're 95% positive that there's something, the missiles being loaded into the back of the van, we take the fucking shot. Okay,
100%.
and we suffer the 5% consequences. Like,
Of
be
course.
damned what they
We
are.
were surveilling for 8 hours and they had cans
I
of
agree. It was a
water.
massive
Come
failure.
on,
So it is
I'm
a
not
massive
saying it
failure,
wasn't
but
a massive
Like,
failure.
pointing out the
you
extent
yell
of the
like
failure
this,
doesn't
oh my
do
God,
anything
they
to
were going
further the
for 8 hours.
conversation.
Like, it doesn't, like, the number of hours doesn't matter, right?
It does
Like,
because
it's
they're
not as
following
simple-
them around.
Hold on,
They're
my
following
God.
them
Let me
around.
ask
They
you
can
this.
see what they're
Like,
doing.
Prime,
They saw that there were
You can
kids in
say
the
that like
vehicle.
8 hours, they were like, oh
Prime.
my God, like they should have figured out that they were children. Or you can say 8 hours, they were really fucking sure that they had the right guys, and it turned out that like they were children and shit like
They
that.
were wrong.
Right?
So let me ask you this, Prime, really quickly.
It
Do you
goes
think?
both ways.
Do you
if they
let me
were
ask you this:
surveilling for 8 hours, it was the same
if it just so happened to be the case instead that that they were actually people that were like trying to bomb the actual airport, and the general didn't take that shot, should he be fired in that situation? Do you think he should resign then?
That's a good
If
question.
U.S. intelligence is not okay. So let me pull back. I'll pull back on one thing. And that who exactly to blame, right? I think someone should resign. Maybe not particularly this general, but like I'd say that that this is a failure, right? This is a clear failure in whatever processes that we're doing, right? Someone fucked up. It might be this general. Maybe I should put the blame on him, but I actually don't know enough about the processes that are involved to actually do that, right? But whoever fucked up in tallying this, then yes, someone should resign for doing this. There should be some. Hold on. I can only answer one thing at a time. Right? Someone should be held accountable for this kind of fuck up, right? And I would say that if in that other case that you're talking about, right, the reverse example, to answer you directly, right, then whoever is responsible, whoever that is, right, the general or whoever, right, for the actual fuck up, then that person should also resign, because U.S. intelligence is supposed to actually provide a proper description of these current situations. If it can't accomplish that, then what do we have them there for?
Well, so it depends. So, like, the thing is, like, in a vacuum, like, you can look at these things and say, well, this is what should happen. But we're always going to be dealing with, like, limited, like constraints, right? So, like, in this case, there was a really sensitive time constraint. And then the amount of danger associated with this constraint, like, also, like, probably forced hands in a way that, like, made them have to act in ways that they otherwise might not have. And I think the idea that we would just immediately become completely reactionary, that's why I'm so glad us civilians, myself and yourself included, are not like the ones responsible for these kind of things. Because maybe someone has a great track record. Maybe they typically do have whatever. But maybe these circumstances are so different and so constraining that maybe like they couldn't be directly on the ground, like to be able to like get the intel the way they were supposed to, with at the risk of like completely exposing themselves. Or maybe maybe normally they would be able to get on the ground and in a cautious way and set up in time. But by the time they got the tip here, it didn't give them enough time to be at the location that they would normally be in order to get surveillance. So they had to take a bit of a leap, right? Like there's so many different things that could have caused this. But the idea that we would just immediately react and say, well, somebody got to get fired. And it's like, no, just because something happened, we don't know the circumstances that led to that thing happening. And we don't know. Maybe the circumstances could have been so imploring that like, had you been in the same situation, you would make it. We don't have all of the details. We don't know. So then the idea that somebody needs to be fired immediately, I guess maybe you could do that for optics. But then if you're firing skillful and trained individuals specifically for optic purposes, then you're literally harming our military. And now you're creating an environment in which more of these situations are likely to happen. Less people are willing to act. More Americans have potentials of dying. Like, this is crazy. American intelligence has been freaking beautiful in a lot of situations. Not to say that we're not going to fail. Kobe Bryant fails. Freak Steph Curry fails every now and then, right? Best shot in the freaking NBA. But these things happen. Like, if we look at it, we were able to track down freaking Osama bin Laden, you know what I'm saying, in freaking compound in the middle of nowhere. We did that. That was American intelligence. It's freaking amazing. We can't just completely write the whole thing off because of one thing, and particularly because it's optically bad. How many things have we done successful that weren't optically? I mean, that where there weren't a lot of eyes on the ground. Like, I think we're just being way too reactionary.
I gotta respond to this because we're gonna move away from this. We're gonna respond to this because there's so many things. One, that that Like you're saying, fire these people for optics. I'm not saying fire these people for optics. I've never said that, right? You're putting that in there. I've never said that. Okay, I'm saying fire people if they're doing a bad job. You're saying we don't know. I agree. I started at the beginning that we don't know. I said if I was guessing as to how many times the U.S. military has failed at this, then I'd be dishonest because I don't know. What needs to be happen? What did I start off with? What did I start off with? What needs to happen at the very least, I said, is that we have to have an investigation, a complete up and down investigation. How did this fuck up happen? Is this a systemic issue, or maybe it's a one-off? It might be. It might be exactly what you said, Fanatic. Exactly what you said, and that we have these trained professionals who 98% of the times get it right, and then this time was a freak accident, right? And then that changes things, but we literally don't know, and we aren't told about these things, right? But we have to trust the military when they're the only ones who can ever tell us, right, whether each individual drone strike actually has killed militants. So
Yeah,
so
and I'm not even
so
sure.
I would say, so we have to have transparency in this issue. This is unusual. This is an unusual situation in which we ever talk about what happens during a drone strike. They usually don't happen. Is that because they're mostly successful and that they're actually hitting militants and there's nothing on the report, you know, militants killed, right? Or is it because this was simply a special situation that just happened to catch the attention of the New York Times, where they gathered experts to take a look at the wreckage and go like, none of this looks right. Absolutely none of this looks right.
That's how it always is. What are you talking about? This has been going on for 20 years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But exactly. Why are we so surprised? And
exactly,
if we
because that's what I'm saying.
Look that
Because we
up.
have no transparency, zero, none. So at the very least, we start an investigation.
okay,
and then we can
wait.
decide. So no one's
couple
being
things.
reactionary here. Not a person.
Can I please?
Hold on, let me finish. And then you can. So no one is being reaction here. Not a single person. Oh, at least not me. I'll speak for myself. Not being reactionary here. I'm saying let's do an investigation. What I started off with, correct? Correct. So I did say that, right? Great. So let's do an investigation. And if this is a problem, a systemic issue, then obviously something needs to change. If not, right, we're operating on imperfect data, right? Like saying, for instance, I don't know, right? Like when like a neighbor, right, who has a problem with another neighbor says, hey, that guy is Al Qaeda, right? Or that guy works for the Taliban, then they get shipped off to Guantanamo. That would never happen in this country, right? That would never happen. We would never rely on that type of intelligence. I just made that up in my head, right? I just made that up. Or that intelligence that says, well, if we have a known terrorist and then they call someone and then they call someone, right? That third person is probably a terrorist as well, right? I mean, that would be flimsy, and the U.S. would never rely on that intelligence, right? So I'm just making stuff up in my head, right? That the U.S. is better than that and would never make that sort of mistake that would end up killing civilians, right? Done.
Wait, you think the U.S. is better than that and would never kill civilians?
No, I'm joking.
No,
Okay. Oh my God. Okay.
Wow.
So let me help out Prime with some potential like actionable things that we can do in terms of accountability, right? I think it's entirely possible. So under the Obama administration, there was a program that listed the amount of civilian deaths outside of war zones from drone strikes. The Trump administration took that away. I would be in favor of putting that back. If you wanted to say to have like pass a law and have like a tribunal like that goes over like every or an investigation that goes into every single like civilian drone death, like that happens like outside of a war zone, even in a war zone, if you want to be spicy, then we can do that. We have the resources for that. People in Congress are currently like mulling the idea over of having like a congressional investigation into this. The New York Times already did an investigation into this. To me, this seems like certain parts of the institutions are pushing back. Certain parts of these institutions are holding members of it accountable. In terms of like who gets fired or who loses jobs, if we want to talk about like the accountability, like is it any like military person that gets involved like in a bad like situation, who like they act on bad intelligence, or like someone dies, who has to lose their job? If we can talk about, I'm not sure how we would like qualify this at all. I don't think anyone on this panel is like particularly prepared, like myself included, like in how we would talk about like having that like sort of system. We already have isn't there like a military like system of laws or whatever that like holds them accountable for like war crimes and stuff?
Yeah.
Like not like,
I mean, there's like a lot of different things. There's like eternally. There's like different agreements and treaties. There's like a lot of stuff like that.
Okay. Someone in my chat said it's called like the UCMJ.
Yeah, something
right?
something like that.
Okay. Yeah. So like if we can use stuff like that to hold these people accountable internally, then it seems like a lot of these systems sort of exist. We just have to strengthen like them up. We have to, like in the case of Biden, we should probably, like, I don't know if he's done this yet. I was googling this while like everyone else was talking about whether he like re-inputted like Obama eras like that like regulation about like how you have to report all the drone strikes. I think those are good starts. I think this is like there's a lot of things we can do to increase transparency of here that I think like everyone on here would agree with. I personally dislike like some of the wish casting that's happening right now, where like we say like we don't know, but like this might be what they're doing, and I don't like. I feel like that's not super like helpful for like this sort of conversation, and I feel like if we're not prepared to have like that kind of conversation, we probably should.
Is that the other side doing that? That's exactly what everyone else is doing, right? That we don't have this information, and so others are simply assuming that they're doing it right. I'm being skeptical. I'm saying I don't have this information, and so we need to do an investigation. Correct?
I would say right now, like no one has enough information like to make a like specific thing, and at the common sense position that everyone should push for is more information, like active like public like records of like how many people die, and then have like a congressional body like go over these like once a year or like once every couple of months. Like
let's go to
the public.
I was going to go to Doobie.
Okay, so Hans, just kind of push back when you said a little bit about the Obama program that tracks civilian deaths outside of war. I think Prime would probably say that this is still coming from the people doing the war, right? So how reliable are the numbers at all? Because we need to trust that they are giving us accurate numbers.
Okay, cool. Doobie. So answering that question, right? Then I guess like I'd ask the panel, who should we do to report this? Would we say like have like the New York Times do it? Would we find like an independent journalistic organization? Would we like say each country has like a randomly assigned other country that has like a team like following these and like keeps like these like public like records updated? Like for the U.S. would it be China? For China would it be like the U.S. Like okay, so like if we like want like I don't think any country would like consent to that level of like internal like military security like being violated by other nations. But like if we want to talk about potentially like an independent like journalistic or government body, but again, like any entity by the United States like government that records drone strikes is either going to be the U.S. government, because they're the one like planning all these operations. Like they have all the data. Like, and if we say that we can't trust them because they're the ones who do it, like I don't know what we're supposed to do in that instance, because like at that point I feel like skepticism is like forever going to be warranted. And like again, like I get that we want to be skeptical, but what are we supposed to do?
Can I just add, so to add to that really quickly? So I agree with everything you just said, Hans, to be clear. But secondly, I think that this specific strike isn't as like just like a massive fuck up, right? They were intercepting communications for people that they thought were like Taliban fighters, whatever.
ISIS-K.
ISIS fighters. That said that the car would, they'd be meeting up with a motorcycle, and a bit later that car driver meets up with someone on a motorcycle. Right? They've been tracking this person for 8 hours, and people were like loading packages into the car, like over 10 packages or some shit that looked heavy. They said, right? So I think, and the car came from a house that they thought was linked to the suicide attack on the airport, right? So every indication was that this person was linked to ISIS, was meeting up with ISIS fighters or whatever, based on the intercepted communication they had, was receiving packages from other ISIS affiliated people. So yeah, they wanted to minimize the damage because they assumed this person was going to be attempting another attack on the airport that they'd been warned about. Right? They'd also intercepted communications about that, so they blew up the fucking car. Now it's a sad thing, right, that this wasn't actual ISIS members, but I think that like hyper focusing on this, and yeah, it's sad. It's easy to say, oh well, hey, fuck it, shit happens when it's not my family members, right? Of course. But I think that's just like the reality of like wartime. Shit like this is gonna happen. The alternative to drone strikes is to have like people there on the ground going after these people, risking more death, right? Not just from collateral damage, but also to our soldiers. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I think we need to accept like that shit like this is gonna happen sometimes. When it happens, we should do an investigation. But beyond that, like wanting people to like fired or whatever it just seems like an overreaction.
So I'm a chemical engineer, and we'll go to Dolphin next, and then we'll go to Dolphin next and Jason. Yep, Dolphin next and Jason.
You're a chemical engineer?
Yeah, I'm a chemical engineer. I
The fuck
am in
the
charge,
lore.
and I'm in charge
pretty
of
cool.
safety. I'm fucking with you, dude. Come on. Are you high? Are you high? Are you not getting any
Oh,
of
what
this?
kind of question is that?
Okay, the answer is
Of course
yes.
I'm
yes.
high.
Okay, sure, fair enough. Okay. But I'm a chemical engineer. I'm in charge of a plant. We did our due diligence, and everything's looking great. And then there's an explosion, right? Or at least I say we do our due diligence, and there's an explosion, and a ton of people die, right? So in that situation, no one should be held accountable. Like, first of all, we should do an investigation, right? I'm assuming everyone at least is on that board of that, but actually not everyone has said that. So Doobie is saying, well, we should just fucking move on, right? But we do an investigation, right? And if there is negligence, they get fired. I get fired, correct? Because I'm in charge. And we looked at this. I looked at the available data, but people died. A whole lot of people died, poisoned.
What about it maybe leading to some better practices? Like, I think that there's.
No, that's fair.
I think like
Wait,
there's a
hold on. Really
lot of.
quick, AJ, he just walked all of that thing, all of the stuff he said back now, and I think that's a perfect olive branch. In the face of pure, like in a case that Prime is laying out here, where like someone is literally negligent, and the result of his negligence is 10 lives lost. Absolutely, can that nigga, like, for sure, get him out of here. Like, but again, there needs to be a pure negligence, and of course, we won't have access to that information.
And that's what the process is for, right? Like, whether it's like the USMJ thing, or whether it's like a congressional investigation, which like some of our Congress people are like currently like kicking around. Like, if we I think that's like a really fair thing of like, holding like the most powerful like aspects of our government accountable is that like when they fuck up, there should be investigation, like even multi-pronged, right? We can do like, there can be like a military investigation, because like aren't there like military investigators and stuff, and there can also be like a congressional investigation, and there can be like independent news investigations, and they can like bring this together and then decide like like who's responsible, and like if like any like punishment is warranted, and then and at the very least, if it's not warranted, that it's like publicized, right? Like there's
So can I just
hold on,
explain why?
No. Top Dolphin and Jason.
Okay.
I cut off Captain Jones though.
Captain. No. Yeah, but it's Top Dolphins and top.
Yeah. So one, I'm not 100% sure that this is like would fall under the UCMJ. From what I understand, the UCMJ is mostly kind of the rule book that like military members follow. It doesn't always like have to do with performance. Like if you like blatantly like fuck up, I guess like it's under that. But like this could be kind of like not related. It's like weird. One thing I want to bring up, or two things I want to bring up, is like one, intelligence is like really hard sometimes, and especially one of the reasons we need to get the fuck out of Afghanistan is because the Taliban is like ruthless, right? One thing that they do is they use children and families as scapegoats and sacrifice them in order to give false information. Like they do shit like that, right? And I think it's like one, like we try to point fingers, but like it's also good to know that like necessarily nothing has. There is a scenario that's possible in which like people followed like every reasonable piece of evidence in like a perfect manner, and we still have this really shitty outcome, and it sucks. But like it's possible that this family was just acting like terrorists in any like visible way that we could have observed, and that like it sucked because they got bombed because we had like information that was like either maybe falsely fed to us, maybe or maybe that was misinterpreted, or like misinterpreted would be a fuck up. But yeah, I think it's remember that like not necessarily like the solution to like people dying is always someone fucked up. It is very possible that like people died and it was like just an unfortunate circumstance.
Jason.
So here's a couple things that kind of ring sound alarms for me, right? This person, the patriarch of this family, was a U.S. contractor. So we're saying that our intelligence wasn't good enough to assess that we were like surveilling a U.S. contractor, that's bad. That's bad.
So what are you saying?
Wait, contractor. This is
Is
so
it that? I don't
silly
know
because
anything about
contractors are
intelligence.
like contractors can literally be
hold on.
anybody from
These
like
people
any
were
country
trying to get
doing
their
whatever the fuck
visas.
they want. Like
They were already in contact with the government trying to get visas to get out of the country. Okay, like this isn't like they were totally like moved away from the U.S. and had no involvement in anything that was going on with the U.S. or had involvement in trying to get visas. They were actively doing that, and that's where I think the intelligence breakdown was, right?
Okay, so
Like that's really bad. Now that said, yes, we've got to do something. We can't let it go. Whether or not we fire somebody or whether or not we have a congressional investigation, we have to do something to show that we actually are going to hold, if not a person, the system and the structural structural apparatus that created this incident accountable. And we can do that, and we can take away, we can do our due diligence and walk away with better practices. We can, at the same time, we can also hold somebody accountable at the lower level who made the mistake, because there were mistakes made here that could have been avoided. We know that. I mean, there just simply
do
was.
we know that?
So I don't know how you don't.
But
I mean,
like,
based off of the information I've read,
where's your proof that there were mistakes made, dog? Like you're like,
well, the proof is in the
100% right
pudding.
in
I'll
saying
say
you
the
have
proof
to
is in the
take
pudding.
investigation.
Bro,
But you
that's
guys
not
know
true.
the problem is that you guys look at the outcome of an event and you're like, well,
Right.
because there was a bad outcome, there's obviously mistakes made. That's not always the
But
case.
hold on,
Like,
hold on.
This is not how like
that's
procedure
exactly what it
works.
means.
Oh,
It means that there was
No, that's
mistake.
not how it means.
What
it
if there
means.
was an intentional sabotage by the Taliban in order to get an optic win, so they made it look like these people? I'm just coming up off the top of my freaking head. What if the Taliban intentionally like made it seem like this family, whatever, gave the information so as to get the U.S. to do this, so as to create an optic nightmare and hoping winning some portion of the moral war, right? What if that was the case? You have no wait, hold on. I literally came up with that off the top of my head. You have no idea whether or not that's true or not. Neither do I. The fact is, you can't come to a conclusion that there had to have been some procedural error. You just don't have evidence to support that. You don't even know the procedure.
But with all due respect,
okay, no, you didn't ask for an investigation. You didn't ask for an investigation. You said that you knew there was a procedural mess up here, and you don't know that.
At some point,
and you can't assume that from the outcome.
So, but with
Can
all
I
due
finish
respect,
what I was talking about before you guys interrupt me? Because shit, man, I feel like I've been interrupted this whole goddamn panel. So
You
shut the
have.
fuck
I'm
up
sorry.
and let me say.
Okay, stop saying stupid stuff, and we'd probably be more
listen,
okay. All right,
and you know what? If you didn't say stupid stuff about trans people, we wouldn't have gotten into that. But we'll go another issue with that. Okay, but here's the thing. Yes, absolutely. If we got shit information and we used it, that's still our problem. That's still something that we own, and we still have to do something about it. Having a congressional investigation and finding out if somebody is actually accountable and legitimately accountable isn't a bad thing. This is exactly what we should be doing. And Hans was right on the money when he was talking about that shit. Like, why wouldn't we do that? We're just supposed to walk away from it, hands up. Hey, sorry.
So I with all due
I don't
respect
think
to
a single
Mr.
person
Fanatic,
said we shouldn't have an investigation.
Yeah, hold on, and with
maybe
that
do
too,
like
that too. And with all due respect to Mr. Fanatic's hypothetical, I got one better. How about we were pulling out of a fucking country and it was a super goddamn hectic situation? Fucking that shit was a goddamn shit show. We all saw it like fucking unveiled to us in the 21st century, 2021, live on television, as does a lot of things nowadays. But like, you know, let's not pretend like it wasn't a fucking massively chaotic shit show. Like, come on, we have to like, and I have not said. Hold on, I have not said
them for 8 hours, dog.
Yeah, but it's so and like again, it sounds like, but like so again, it sounds like we fucked up. Why? Because 10 innocent civilians are dead. Nobody's disputing that. But like, but can we also maybe just give like a little bit of like lenience to the fact that this is a tough situation? Clearly mistakes were made, and that like maybe we also don't want to tell people how we're doing shit. Like there's a reason to hide the way that we came up with the information and into how we like did a certain strategic strike. Like let's just say Now I'll go to hypothetical land. Let's just say there was somebody on the ground who was feeding this information. We give up that information. Now this person's exposed. Now their secret cover's blown. James Bond. Well, he always goes by his own name. So I don't know. Anyway, he's a stupid secret
Captain
agent.
A. Jones, that's the first time you've said something that I fully can endorse. See, there is middle ground there, right? Like, okay, yeah, fist bump there. That's exactly it. We don't know. And like the idea, I wanted to push back on this earlier, Hans, when you were talking about like an investigation and something about public. Nope, you automatically lost me there, right there. We start talking about intelligence, right? Like, first off, we already know how unintelligent the average American citizen is. We do not need to share these things with all of the American citizens. It's problematic. Like, once you start giving out that information, everyone else has information, and they can use that sort of information to reverse engineer to figure out what exactly, just figure out all kinds of things that they need not know. So, no, I'm 100% opposed to that idea. I think
But
that's
the intelligence community.
I was just added, please.
There's also
like,
a lot of
gang-
like space
gang-
to talk about, like having accountability be like separate, right? We can have a lot of
make me
private
fucking yell.
like groups that can hold other groups accountable that aren't necessarily public. The UCMJ is actually, they're like on the fence, but they're like a good example of this. They kind of operate separately from the rest of the military, right? So that when they go to do like hold people for courts and stuff like that, there isn't a ton of, well, with higher ups there might be, but there's not a ton of like what's the word? Not collusion, like conflicts of interest. And like you can do the same thing. You'd have separate private entities that necessarily hold each other accountable without necessarily everything needing to be public and transparent. Although it would be cool if the CIA and some of the intelligence agencies in the United States had more transparency, because we have no idea what some of them do.
So Fnatic, I understand like the concerns about like having like processes public. So I guess like a question I would ask before I move forward like with the point is, do you feel like what has currently been like given to the public both by the White House and by the news media right now, like the New York Times investigation, is that too much information for the public?
I haven't read enough to know exactly what information has been given. Hold on, I'll go out on this one really quickly. Say, if the White House felt comfortable enough to give it to the American public, then it probably isn't too much information. Just throwing that out there.
Okay, cool. So, so again, like basic, like facts of the case thing, right? It's like the U.S. was like monitoring like ISIS-K stuff after like the Kabul bombing, because there was like 100 like people plus died, like 10, like it was like 13 Americans died, right? So it's like, so everyone's on high alert. We're still trying to evacuate people. Like there's still like all that sort of shit's going on. And then they thought they tracked the car to a site, because like if the Taliban or if ISIS-K like controls like certain areas and people like go through them, like they're going to like interact. And then they found like the car, like apparently like they saw people putting like water, like jugs of water in the car, and they thought that those jugs were bombs or explosive. So they thought those jugs were explosive. They ordered a strike because they thought they were going to do like a repeat of like the initial bombing. Again, killed like over 100 people. And then so like the two like part question is, what would we do in that scenario if they like had like been bombs? Because like we can't like if we say like more intelligence, right? Like again, like I think like everyone on this panel already admitted, I don't think any of us have an experience with this, where it's like intelligence is like probably pretty hard, and I don't think like the United States currently has the technology like to be able to like look inside like those water canisters, like every water canister like ever. They say like, oh, we saw like these canisters taken by men who traveled through like ISIS-K controlled sites, and now they're moving to a populated area. We have like an example. We have like threats going out. What are we supposed to do? Because it's really, really easy to say, oh, like we should have just like succeeded. And I completely agree. Like then they fucked up. I don't think anyone here is saying that they did a good job. So what are we supposed to do there? So, and then like for the investigations, like I'll throw like an olive branch to Fnatic. So if we're okay with like the information that's currently out there, then then it seems like most of these conversations, or the information that we can provide for them, are enough for them to give essentially like virtually all the facts of the scenario, with the explicit exception of like the methods of intel gathering, right? Because it seems like a lot of us have like specific questions like, how did they not know that this, or like how did they know this, right? And so I can agree with you that that's probably never going to be made public for like, I assume like security reasons and stuff, right? Like I don't think I can agree with you that doesn't make any sense. But I think like the scenario, like stuff that's like done by the New York Times and given out by the Biden administration, I think maybe if we had like a habit of doing that, we could that would probably be for the better. And if you want, and like I'm throwing a bone, if you want to have like just internal investigations, whether it's in the military and like Congress, and only have like the safe facts like thrown out, we can do that as well if we're like worried about the national security stuff. Would that be like an acceptable like way of dealing with these problems?
Absolutely, and I would also
Cool.
say, like, first off, like Snowden is a freaking hero. But I do think that, like, yeah, when you start doing things like, I mean, like, what he did was like amazing, but it had its negative ramifications, right? Like, you're literally like doxing a whole bunch of individuals who are literally in enemy lines, like doing espionage and stuff, right? So it's like you always got to balance these things. But sure, like, yes, as much as safe information as we can get, I want it. I love transparency. The more information, the better. But it needs to make sure that it's safe and it needs to not be compromising. And sometimes when you're dealing with intelligence, the less known is the better, at least so that our enemies aren't well aware.
So I would respond saying that we can, like, there is, yes, well, maybe we're close to the same page there, but that there is like having a third party look at these situations doesn't mean that everyone needs to know like the exact like TikTok of how we perform this operation, who was involved, what are contacts. Yeah, there's a third party. The third party, that's their job, right?
No, but who's the third party? Like, who's going to be the accepted third party that we're allowing this? Is it going to be like a journal organization? Is it just another branch of government? Like, I don't like.
Sure.
Is it House members like Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Oh my God, we can figure that part is easy to come up with a third party. Yes, actually it is. You can actually come up with third party. You can convene experts who have no ties to the military whatsoever, and you could have a panel of them who regularly look at these things, right? Like that you have the military has to hand over all their data, right? And then to these individuals when there's an incident, right? In any incident, like when a military says successful or not successful, and they can just look it over, right? And say
the
like
problem when you say no ties to military is that like
all
the
security
like,
people, right?
This one's okay,
Like,
right? Because a lot of the information is public, but a lot of times like stuff you need security clearance to see stuff, and to get security clearance, you kind of have to be like,
well, no, hon,
part of our government.
You can
part of our military.
You can give them. No, you don't. No, you don't have to be the part. No,
not
you do
military,
not have to be part of the military.
But you have to be determined to be like not a. I'm pretty sure you have to like not be a threat. Like I think like my cousins in the Air Force.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure like they have like there's like different like levels of security clearance and stuff.
Yeah.
And so like the higher you go, like the more you have to like have your affinity like to American. If they know like all these things, that's probably like what's like the top level for clearance. Like is it like secret or like super secret or some shit? Like so it's like you'd have
super.
So we need people with top secret clearances who don't have an affiliation with the U.S. government or military. Like who the fuck are these people?
I didn't say that. You're putting words in my mouth. All right, maybe stop and don't put words in my mouth, and then you'll understand what I'm fucking saying. Let's try it again, right? I said the U.S. military, not the U.S. government, right? People can have ties to the government, and I don't see what the problem is. Like, well, almost, because it was a whole thing with my job. But anyway, I almost got like a military clearance, not military, excuse me, like a secret information clearance, right? Whatever it's called. I almost got that too. I didn't have any ties to the government. There have been plenty of ways to get this, right? And we can empanel a few individuals who don't have prior ties to the military, and then like give them that clearance. They can run through the process. It's simple. It's an investigation that they do. They look into your past, and like I don't see how this is even the stumbling block, right? We can give people clearance, right? Like we can look at them, look in the past, and give them clearance. That part's easy. That part's easy.
But all the criteria. You're asking for a practical solution.
Holy shit! No, shut up! Shut up!
I'm being very nice. Like,
thank you. I'm being very nice because I haven't muted anyone. I'm trying.
Can I go up? Can I go after you're done?
Okay, sure, great.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. So like you can empanel people to actually look at these things, right? Like you can come up like with people who are acceptable to the parties involved, and have them look at them have them look at this information and like have some sort of I guess I don't know judgment verdict. I'm not sure what you would call it, right? But like we can come up with a way of looking at this, right? And maybe they don't like say that, okay, the military is definitely guilty of something here, right? They can say, hey, this looks suspicious, and maybe we should escalate this to maybe a court of law or something like that, right? There are all kinds of ways you can make this. I think this part is actually quite easy to come up with a group to manage this. But go ahead, Hans.
Okay, so I feel like when we're making this group, right, there's like a couple things that we need. Like, so first, like they all need like the highest level of like the security clearance, so because they know all about the military's operations. Secondly, they can't be affiliated with the military. If they're okay with them like as a government body, okay, that means they also need to have like a background in like military security or like security, and it's so like. Yeah, or like intelligence. So is the like group of people like, so that for me this feels like the only like bodies are like intel agencies. That's like saying like, oh, don't worry, the CIA and the FBI will hold the military accountable because like we're gonna pull from people with top secret clearances with backgrounds in security like that aren't affiliated with the military. Like literally like if this is what we want, like that's fine, but realize what we're asking for. Like, and if we're worried about like the United States like military and government like doing shady shit, like it seems like the only body that's like acceptable for this are like like equally shady like people, right? Like I don't know, like like at this point like we're letting like foxes like guard the hen house from other foxes. Like don't worry, like we have a new like watch like a coalition to like make sure foxes aren't eating hens, and it's run by foxes like or coyotes, like slightly different like predators.
I disagree with your premises, but go ahead, Jason.
I think it's redundant though. Like this is what the House Intelligence Committee does. That's like their whole ass job is to investigate shit like this and have private hearings, that they have in these deep bunker basement like hearing rooms that you hear about all the time. Like this is the type of thing that happens in our House Intelligence Committee. Like that's who handles this stuff. We don't need a separate operation to do that. And a lot of these people that are on the Intelligence Committee, the reason they're on the Intelligence Committee is because they have a history or a background in it. They don't just get dropped on there for no reason. So I think it's redundant to create a whole other like body to do what we have designated Congress to do.
Well, one of the problems with like the House Intelligence Committee is necessarily like generals work very closely with Congress, for example. So like there might be like a conflict of interest there, right? Another big problem. So I believe actually our like if you talk about our military, they're a little bit better with accountability than like our CIA and FBI, but still not great. But it seems like all of these bodies need some sort of external like person because they work so closely together sometimes. There's just too many conflicts of interest, and which is what people are concerned about when they're talking about like our intelligence agencies not having transparency. It's that they can sell any story they want, and they are all friends with each other because they all work together. And we don't have the like information to actually assess like how well they're doing their job. We don't have statistics on that. Like the TSA, for example, we don't have statistics on how successful the TSA has been. And like this is like a big like infringement on civil liberties, maybe. And that's like one of the biggest problems. I don't think it's like as simple as just like, oh, we just like establish a third party body, because it's really hard to find individuals who like fit qualifications that have no conflicts of interest.
I think I reject that this is some sort of impossible task.
I have a really easy question for you, Prime.
I reject that I reject a lot of Hans's premises, right? And that like you have to have and again, this body, like I just literally came up with this body. Hold on. Oh my god. It's like I was talking. It was almost like I was talking and trying to get a point out, and then some like a very loud Aryan just felt the need to have to interrupt me. Oh, it's just amazing how that just keeps happening. I just don't understand this. Okay, let's try it again. All right. Oh god, I feel like fanatic sometimes, right? That's like I literally just came up with this top of my head, right? So I come up with a third party body that is capable of this, like of
Just do the thing. Thank you. Okay, but like, what
shut up! Hold on. No, shut up! Let me just finish it. Holy shit! I'm not even going to be talking for long. I just want to get done. Like I just want to shut up, and then I want to hear what Top Dolphin has to say. Oh my god! Anyway, like to come up with a third party apparatus, I don't think that it's difficult to come up with something, even if it doesn't look like what I'm proposing. Right? I don't think it would be impossible to do that, and that's something that's equitable. So I don't think that's impossible. But even in the ones that I stated, like pretending that the actions of the military are completely inscrutable to anyone who hasn't been in the military, right? That I actually reject. That, like, you can actually learn these processes. Like, you don't have to have, you can have experience, like, for instance, and like they had like explosive engineers, right? Explosive engineers or explosive experts, right? Look at the shrapnel. The New York Times, like, I got these people. It's like to look at the shrapnel, and they got people from all kinds of fields, right? But they looked at the situation, and then from their from their judgment, they realized that this was not the case. At the same time as the Pentagon saying this was an absolute slam dunk. The Pentagon was telling us that, right? But the New York Times managed to grab a group of individuals, right, who had far less information than the Pentagon, and they looked at this as like, this doesn't look right. They said, true, we don't have as much information as the Pentagon, but from our understanding, this doesn't look right. You can assemble a group of individuals like that, and then you can teach them. They're going to be parts of like the military and intelligence agencies that they don't understand, right? You can actually teach them these processes. You can let them know this is what is done, right? Because they have to learn the whole thing anyway, which way, understand that, so that they can find out when there's a failure there, right? Like, I don't think this is an impossible thing. Oh, you weren't yourself within the CIA. You weren't yourself in the Air Force. So how could you possibly understand that? No, these you can find intelligent individuals.
That's not why I have that as why I would recommend that as a requirement. The requirement would be to like negate potential conflicts of interest, because I think you could rightfully say, if we have like a bunch of like former like military security specialist contractors as like our like governing body of this, I think you'd probably rightfully say like, what the fuck, we're holding them accountable with people who like literally just got out of the military. This is like when people talk about like generals sitting on the board of weapons contractors. I'm trying to avoid conflicts of interest, and I'm just telling you, like, if we're getting people that don't have conflicts of interest, it seems like that talent pool for this sort of organization is like really fucking small, because again, they need top secret security clearance so they can have access to all this sort of stuff. They need to have a background in security so they can understand like what's like right and what's wrong, like in this sort of stuff. They need all these things, and all these people I feel like are tied up and have conflicts of interest that you will not accept. So like,
I reject your premises, but I reject your premises.
What are your premises? Give me your qualifications.
Hold on, I'm really important. Thank you for the kind raid. This is the first time you're rating me. It might be, but thank you. I'm really important for rating me by 162 individuals. Thank you, IR. I hope you had an amazing stream. Hello, my name is Prime. We're doing a closed panel here. We're talking about the failed U.S. drone strike. The U.S. completely fucked up and killed 10 individuals. A lot of these guys are pro-military and they're pro-death. No, I'm sorry. I'm leaving here. I'm sorry. But anyway, we're having an interesting discussion. It's a lot of fun. We do this all the time. We have these talks about this, and we have open walk-on panels. After we're done here, and we'll be done here soon, we're going to continue on to an open walk-on panel, right? We're honest members like you. Yes, you at home, IRI panel, and my own audience, right? You can come and be involved, right? So we'll talk either more about this or something else, and we do that all the time, right? We are streaming 6 nights a week. So if any of that interests you, hit that follow button right now and make sure notifications are on so you know I'm going live. It is 6 nights a week. Don't try to miss out on any of that. So hit that follow button right now. Once again, IRI, thank you for the kindness. All right, Dolphin.
Yeah, so I'm actually gonna say I agree with you a little bit more than I thought I did. Yes, in terms of having people to investigate, like having scientists and explosive engineers and stuff like that to investigate all that kind of stuff. Yes, we can have people who can do all of that kind of investigation, which is like a really big step. I think what Hans is kind of talking about is that, like, specifically when it comes to the intelligence aspect of things, it seems like it's really hard to find people without conflicts of interest. Where do you get where do you get, like, you can read about things in a book, but my question for you is going to be, where do you get on the ground intelligence experience that's not the United States government?
And here's like the big thing, like Dolphin, is that because I feel like right now the information we have is like just the information that's going to be going to our congressional body, right? Like the stuff that's given to the public, the stuff that the Biden administration has put out. If we want to do like the quote unquote more accountability that people are talking about, then we need to have more information. And that like goes up into and might include like, the security, like intel processes, right? And at that point, they do need that top secret shit, and they do need to have like the experience to understand it. And so I'm just like, I don't know where these imaginary people are that have like master's degrees in like security or like careers in security and have no relation to the government. Like, are we looking at like,
not every person in the group is going to have that, right? Like you're going to have like several departments. You might have like an explosives department, and those people don't really need an intelligence experience. You might have like a but
if they're sharing information like for comprehensive reports, are we making sure that only
all of these people would need like top secret clearances, but you don't necessarily have to have like government experience to get a clearance, right? Like you or military experience to get a clearance. A clearance is something like people at NASA, right, have like can technically have secret or top secret clearances. Like a clearance doesn't necessarily mean you need intelligence or security experience.
Right.
I think specifically the intelligence and security departments of this like body that we might create would have really, really, really hard times finding people who don't have conflicts of interest. But there are like tons and tons of other jobs that would be filled. Like I think the really good one that Prime brought up is the explosives engineers that wouldn't necessarily have to get experience through our government and could just like get a clearance with background checks and stuff like that.